With the second pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Washington Redskins select Chase Young, defensive end, Ohio State.
But you know as they say, hail to the Redskins. Let's roll, man. Let's go.
Welcome, all my fellow Redskin brethren and sistren. I am your man and resident Redskins fan, Luke. Thank you for joining me here on the Redskins Report Live. So, a lot to get to tonight. We're going to talk about the linebacker position in particular tonight, among other topics. Last week, we tackled what to me is the most intriguing position on the offensive side of the football in the tight ends. And now I want to tackle what I think is going to be the most intriguing position on the defensive side of the football. Now, I think there are a lot more spots available at the linebacker position than at any other position on this team. Maybe outside of offensive line, but you're talking about the linebackers in particular. And so I think there are going to be more guys that make the team, and there's going to be less, dialogue about who should be on the team, who shouldn't be on the team. There will be some interesting decisions on the back end of that group. We'll talk about that tonight. I'll talk about Ron Rivera's philosophy, sort of like I did last week in regards to the tight end position. We'll do that with the linebacker position tonight. We'll also talk about an idea, and I want to really start this show with that. We'll do that in a second after I set the table. I'll lay this out for you. I'll set the table, and I'll read some of your comments if you're out there. First and foremost, if you're out there, thank you for joining me here on the Louie T Network for the Redskins Report Live. It feels like I haven't talked to you guys in ages, man. And it hasn't been that long, but I think I've gotten so used to talking to you guys, and there was so much news coming out that now, when I'm away from you guys for what it seems like a week or so, it seems like a long time. And I think we reconvened on, Friday, Saturday, whenever that whole situation with the wide receiver happened. What's his face? And so, it probably hasn't been that long, but it feels like it's been a while. But I was listening to the Kevin Sheehan Show podcast the other day. I can't remember which day it was. And he had made reference to a question that was posed by Ben Standing, who is a beat reporter for The Athletic. He covers most of the DC sports for The Athletic, has been covering the Redskins now for about the last 2 years or so for The Athletic, does a really good job. And he came up with this question, and it's a really simple question, but when you sit down and actually think about it, it can become a lot harder than you expect it to be. So he says, who are your top 5 Redskins on the roster right now? And he wants you to think about it in the context of if the Redskins were having to open up their roster to an expansion team. All right. So the rest of the league, remember when Jacksonville and Carolina came into the league and there was an expansion draft? And those two teams got to pluck 2 players off of each roster. Well, you also, as a team, got to protect 5 players. 5 players that could not be touched, could not be poached away by those 2 expansion teams. Who would those 5 players be for you for the Redskins? All right? And, when you think about it like that, it makes it a lot tougher, I kind of want to change my list now. As I put it in that context, when I made the list, I was just thinking about the guys that I think are the best players on the team. But when you think about it in that context, I think I might actually have to change my list. No, I don't have to change my list. I feel good about my list. You're not going to make me feel bad about my list. I feel good about my list. So who are the 5 guys that you would put on that list? And I want it in sequential order. I want it in the order in which you would want those guys protected. 1 being the guy you would want protected the most. 5 being the guy that you would want protected the least. But all 5 of them would be protected, okay? So who are the top 5 Redskins on the team right now? Leave it in the comment section. Use the hashtag LouieTLive. And I want to get to those comments here in a second. But first and foremost, thank you guys for joining me. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the Louie T Network for more great content. Make sure you're following me on IG, Louie T Network _. Make sure you're following me on Twitter at Louie T Network. Those will keep you in tune to what's going on here on the Louie T Network. In addition to, of course, the Louie T Network on YouTube. Make sure you turn on those notifications. So you guys know how this works. All right. For those of you who don't, I'll quickly explain. There are 3 ways to get in contact with the show. And I know the last 2 ways haven't been very prevalent the last couple of weeks. And I'm sorry for that. I apologize in advance. But the super chats have been flowing. That's the way I prefer it. And so I graciously thank all of you, even those of you who can't or haven't super chatted. Doesn't matter. The fact that you're joining me, I greatly appreciate that. But super chats come first. They always have, always will come first. That's why they're called super chats, because they supersede everything else. So if you want your comment to be heard quick, fast, and in a hurry, super chat is the way to have that done. So after the super chat comes the phone lines. And as a matter of fact, I will open up the phone lines right now. There is the number on your screen. So now you have access to the phone lines. And if you're going to call in, there's a small checklist that you need to make sure that you abide by before even picking up the phone. Make sure your volume is up on your device that you're calling on so that we can all hear you clearly and concisely. Make sure that you have whatever monitor you're watching this on turned down so we do not hear the echo from that as you are talking on the phone. Make sure that you know what you want to say, all right? Don't call in and then just a bunch of silence. You know, call in, know what you want to say, get to the point, get straight to the business, and get in, get out so we can take that call, talk about it, and then move on. And so the call line is the second way to interact with the show. And then lastly is the comment section. Use the hashtag LouieTLive to have your comment read on the air. And so if we don't have any calls, if we don't have any super chats, we'll get to the phone lines, and that's how the show proceeds. So I want to get to the comment section here just briefly. And I'll give you guys a little bit more time, and we'll go through this whole discussion throughout the show about the top 5 Redskins. And I know some people will get here a little bit later on, and I want their input as well. But also wanted to talk about the linebacker position tonight and go through Ron Rivera's track record, his history with the linebacker position, talk about what he's done in the past, what his philosophy has been, how that then pertains to this roster, and what most likely will be the outcome for the roster at the linebacker position in the upcoming 2020 season. So with that being said, I don't see any super chats at the moment, but I do see some comments, so I want to read a couple of these, and then if there are any phone calls, we'll get to that afterwards. King of the North says Chase Young, Terry McLaurin, Jonathan Allen, Brandon Sheriff, Dwayne Haskins would be the 5 guys that he would protect. Valora Watts says my top 5: McLaurin number 1, Young number 2, Sheriff number 3, Jonathan Allen number 4, Landon Collins number 5. Honorable mentions: Haskins, Paynes, Steven Sims, Kerrigan, Ioannidis. Craig Harrison says Young, McLaurin, Allen, Sheriff, and Payne. So that's his 5 there. So keep those coming. If we get a chance, we'll go through those throughout the night periodically. I'll give you my 5 right now quickly. I almost feel dirty for doing this. You know, I feel filthy because the man hasn't played a single snap in the NFL, but we all know the talent that is Chase Young, so he goes to number 1 for me. Number 2 on the list is Brandon Sheriff. I don't think he gets enough credit for what he's capable of doing. I think he's going to shine here in the upcoming season if he's able to stay healthy. I need the Redskins to make sure that this guy doesn't walk away somehow, some way. This doesn't turn into another Kirk Cousins type of situation. But he's a special guard in this league. He has the potential to be like a Marshall Yanda, how he was for the Ravens. He's going into the Hall of Fame. He just retired this offseason. Brandon Sheriff has a chance to be one of those types of players here in Washington. I'd like to see him stay here. He's my number 2. Number 3 on my list is Terry McLaurin. I saw enough in the rookie campaign that I'm sold on this guy. He's the consummate professional. He's an excellent teammate. He says all the right things. He does all the right things. He's exactly what we needed, a breath of fresh air on this football team at the wide receiver position. I love what he's brought to the table. Think that the sky's the limit for him. Terry McLaurin's my number 3 Redskin right now. Number 4, maybe a bit of surprise to some of you, but it's Matt Ioannidis. All right, Matthew Ioannidis has been the most consistent defensive lineman for this Redskins team since 2016, I believe it was. 2017 is when he started to first show flashes of the brilliance that we've seen from him the past 2 seasons. He had 4.5 sacks in 2017. He had 7.5 in 2018, and last year he had 8.5. So he just continues to get better and better and better. He led the team in sacks a season ago. I think that this guy is going to flourish even more so in this new defense. Now, again, let me make this abundantly clear. It's a 4-3 base defense, but the Redskins played a ton of nickel, so they were in even a ton last year. But the 4-3 concept changes a lot, and schematically, what they will be doing and what they'll be asked to do in the defense is going to be different as well. I love Matt Ioannidis. He's been the most productive defensive lineman, and so for me, he's my number 4. Then you get to number 5 for me, and that's Jonathan Allen, who I believe has some untapped potential and given an opportunity to get up the field and not two gap and just be able to be dominant up the field and disruptive. I think he's going to be more effective moving forward, and he's a guy that has played well, but I don't think he's scratched the surface quite yet. Same could be said for Daron Payne as well, but I think Jonathan Allen is the guy that can get to the quarterback. I'm still not quite sure about Daron Payne's ability to necessarily affect the quarterback. We'll see. You know, a lot of people think that this could be a year where Daron Payne kind of goes off as he gets an opportunity to finally be the guy that he was at Alabama, which he wasn't much of a pass rusher there, but you talk to people there, he could have been a pass rusher, but he sacrificed himself for the good of the team. We'll see what happens with Daron Payne, but that's my top 5. My honorable mentions are Landon Collins, Daron Payne, Dwayne Haskins, and I'll go with 2 more. And both of the Antonios. I'm really fond of both of those guys, even though they're youngsters. I want to see what they look like in a Redskins uniform. So I'd go with Antonio Gibson and Antonio Gandy-Golden as my 2 guys that I wouldn't want to be poached from this roster. But it'll be interesting to see how this thing goes. I'm excited for the upcoming season. A lot of young players, man. I can't remember the last time a Redskins roster was this young. I mean, it's a lot of young guys out here competing to try to make this football team. And I think it's going to make for some compelling TV for us as Redskins fans. I think we're going to be in a lot of ball games, and we're going to be really excited about the young guys and the role that they will be playing on this football team. So let's see. I got some more in here. One from Gavin Palmer, who says McLaurin, Young, Allen, Collins, and Haskins. All right. So no Sheriff on that one. That's interesting. Brian Haynes says, I would keep Young, Allen, McLaurin, Ioannidis, and Sweat. Oh, yeah, Montez Sweat is a guy that I would have on my honorable mentions list. I probably, thinking about it, it would be nice to bump him up, but I wasn't, blown away by Montez Sweat in his rookie season. So I'd go with the guys that I feel like are a much more known commodity than the guy that I'm hoping is going to blossom into this big time star off the edge. But Sweat is a good one too. I would put him on my honorable mentions list before just about everybody I mentioned on the honorable mentions list. Him and Payne would probably be the first two, and throw Haskins in there as well, and Collins. So those four would probably be the guys that would be the first to be on that honorable mentions list. Good job on that one. Good catch there, Brian Haynes. A.M. Hunter says, I would keep Chase Young. Or he says, what's up, Louie T? Haskins, Maclaurin, Antonio Gibson, Chase Young, and Jonathan Allen. Honorable mentions, Payne and Ioannidis. Peyton the Great says, Maclaurin, Young, Sheriff, and Fuller. That's the first Kendall Fuller that we've heard there. He put Ioannidis. Kamani P says Young, Allen, Maclaurin, Haskins, and Payne. All right, so got another Haskins in there. As we go down the list, OKG 2000 says Maclaurin, Young, Sweat, Sheriff, and Gibson. That's an interesting list. None of the interior defensive linemen on that list for OKG 2000. Jose Martin says Matt Ioannidis, Terry McLaurin, Chase Young, Brandon Sheriff, and Landon Collins. So once again, no interior defensive linemen outside of Matt Ioannidis. So the two guys selected in the first round from the Bama Wall, not included in his list. G Fatty says Chase Young, number 1. Number 2, Terry McLaurin. Number 3, Landon Collins. Number 4, Jonathan Allen. Number 5, Montez Sweat. So he elects to go with the 2 edge rushers, one of the Bama Wall, and Terry and Landon Collins. And number 6, he says, Emanuel Hall, I'm serious, a star if given time. I can't get with you on that one. Emanuel Hall is a one-trick pony. He's really good at that one trick, which is running deep. All right, he's got some legit deep speed, but Emanuel Hall is not a guy that you would want to keep on your roster over a bunch of guys on this team. But I understand where you're going with that. You're trying to bring awareness to Emanuel Hall. We'll see if he's even able to make this football team. Valor Watts says, notice how no one really put offensive players in the top 5, not even a running back. Interesting that is in fact the case. Terry's up there. Terry is on the list. However, no running backs because we're not sure about that position. You're not going to keep AD on your football team. He's 35 years old. Guys can't stay healthy. We don't know what Bryce Love is. Antonio Gibson is a guy that I'm excited about, but you're not going to put him over some of the guys that have established themselves in this league already. So it's hard to put any of those running backs on the list. We don't have any tight ends to which to speak of. I had 2 offensive players on my list, in Sheriff and McLaurin. So, and I think a lot of people have had some of the offensive guys on their list. So, and some people had Dwayne Haskins. So there are some offensive guys on the list, but the defense is right now the strong suit of this football team. We believe. We say that every year, it feels like. And the defense ends up being among the worst in the league. It feels different this time around because you got a defensive-minded head coach for the first time in a long time. And you got a defensive coordinator that knows what the hell he's doing for the first time in a very long time since Greg Williams. So with that being said, you feel really confident and even confident in saying that the defense should be one of the stronger points of this football team. But again, all of that remains to be seen. However, we have our first Super Chat of the night. So we will get to that. Appreciate the Super Chat, King of the North. Greatly appreciate the Super Chat, King of the North. Thank you so much. My man, King of the North, writes, Lou, I'm starting to get unrealistic and think about ways we might contend. I haven't even read the rest of your comment yet, and you've already got me laughing. Stop, King of the North, stop. All right, let me read it over again, and I'm going to try to read it without laughing because once you threw unrealistic in there, you got me to thinking, and I think I know where this is going. I don't know, but I think I know. Let's start this thing over. All right. Lou, I'm starting to get unrealistic and think about ways we might contend for the playoffs. I knew this is where this was going. He says, great D and a strong running game can carry a team, plus Haskins looks like he's putting in work. That wide receiver quarterback relationship is important. That it is. And Haskins has been putting in the work. And I told you that I'm not worried about Dwayne Haskins. I'm really not worried about him. What I'm worried about is the cohesion between he and Scott Turner and how he's able to function in Scott Turner's offense. Because again, we really don't know what Scott Turner's going to do. We don't know him as an offensive play caller, and we don't know how well he and Dwayne will mesh and gel together. You know, much is made of, as you just mentioned, the quarterback wide receiver relationship. The most important relationship is between play caller and quarterback. I mean, that's why Drew Brees and Sean Payton have been so successful. Ask Troy Aikman why he was so successful in Dallas those early years, and he'll tell you very quickly, Norv Turner was a huge part of the reason why he was so successful in his early years in Dallas when they won those 2 championships early on, and then Norv got the job here, and they still went back and won another championship. But Norv Turner was huge in the development of Troy Aikman. The offensive play caller and the quarterback have to be in lockstep. And that's the thing I'm more concerned about. I'm not concerned about Dwayne's work ethic. I told you he works hard. A lot of people have said this guy works hard. All right. I'm not concerned about his talent. We know that he has talent. I'm concerned about how well he acclimates himself to Scott Turner's offense and how well Scott Turner diagrams plays and puts plays in on a weekly basis that Dwayne's comfortable with and that he can excel at. So that's what I'm concerned about. But I understand. The more time you have to sit and think, the more ways you come up with how the Redskins can be a contender this year for the NFC East crown or just the postseason in general. Look, I want to believe that the Redskins can be better than people are prognosticating. I want the national media to be wrong. I want Vegas to be wrong about the Redskins. I want people to have egg all over their face. I want people to be wrong about this team. I want to be wrong about this team. But at the end of the day, I do understand that this is a process. And because it's a process, I don't expect this thing to turn around overnight. I do expect aspects of this team to be vastly better. All right. However, I don't know if those changes and those dramatic leaps and bounds and steps that the Redskins will take in specific areas of their football team, I don't know if that's going to necessarily translate to wins. And that's the thing that I think I'm most concerned about, is that I think we're going to be better on defense. I think we're going to force turnovers. I think we're going to be in ball games. I think this offense is going to be solid. It's going to be better than last year. It can't be any worse. I mean, we went almost 3 full games without scoring a touchdown. So, or it might have been 3 full games, almost a 4th without scoring a touchdown. So, like, we can't be any worse on offense. We're going to be better, I think, on offense this year. It's just how much better. You know, how much better is the defense? How much better is the offense? Can we put it together in, any specific game or consistently in games? Can we put offensively and defensively collectively together as a group good performances that give us chances to win? I don't know. We'll see. But I'm excited, and we'll see what happens. But as you said, you're getting unrealistic. I won't allow myself to, because that's how you set yourself up for disappointment. I just choose to be glass half full. I'm going to be optimistic. I told you, this is the delusional fan in me. Every week that I sit down in front of my television set and the Redskins are on, I, in my mind, feel like we're going to win the game. Now, I may not say that out loud, okay? But every time I sit in front of my TV, no matter how bad I know the Redskins are, last year we were terrible. And I knew we weren't going to win. But in the back of my mind, for some reason, I always felt like we could win. When we were playing the Patriots in week 5 and I knew Jay was on the verge of getting canned, and Colt McCoy was starting the game for us, I still thought in my head, we can win this game. And then when Steven Sims busts off that 67-yard jet sweep and goes to the crib and we're up 7-0, I'm like, okay, why the hell not today? Why not us? Why? Because we're the Redskins and we gave up 31 unanswered points and didn't score a single another point in that game and lost 31-7. That's why not us, because we're not good. But you can't tell me that at 1 o'clock. Okay, so I get it. I understand it, but we'll see what ultimately ends up happening. Let's see. Got another super chat. This one also from King of the North. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, King of the North. Greatly appreciate it. My man, King of the North, writes, I'm up in the win total from 6 to 7. Hyped up. Let me just warn you that 7 isn't good enough to get you in the dance. It's not good enough to get you a ticket. But I love your optimism going from 6 to 7. What's scary there, though, is that if you're going from 6 to 7 with nothing actually tangibly happening in May, I'd hate to see where your win total is when we get to August and things start bubbling. And if things go as planned, as we start to get back to a level of normalcy, hopefully there will be some kind of training camp and maybe a preseason game or two. I'd hate to see where your win total is then if it's already going up from 6 to 7 and nothing has happened that should make you feel like the Redskins can win an additional game. So by the time we get to August and into September, you might be at 10-6 by then, my man. So we'll see what happens. But I appreciate the super chats greatly. Thank you so much. Got another super chat. This one from Jordan Like the Goat. First of all, thank you for the super chat. Jordan Like the Goat. Greatly appreciate it. Jordan Like the Goat writes, he's got Collins 1, Terry 2, Chase Young 3, Sheriff 4, and Ioannidis 5. So when you look at his list, he's got Landon Collins as the first guy that would be an untouchable. Collins isn't even on my list, but that's not because I don't like Landon Collins, and he was really good last season. But I just think there are other guys that are more impactful than Landon Collins. But he's got Landon Collins, and I won't scoff at that. I don't have a problem with that. I would have a problem with him being your number one guy, but it doesn't matter. None of these guys would be able to be poached from your roster. He's got Terry McLaurin 2. I love Terry. He's got Chase Young 3. I get that. You know, I felt dirty putting Chase number 1, but the talent is just overwhelming and too hard to ignore. But he hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet. So, you know, putting him number 1, I felt a little dirty. But I brushed that dirt off my shoulder and kept it moving as I put him number 1 on my list. He has Brandon Sheriff 4, which I love because Sheriff to me is a dominant guard in this league. And that's a guy that I think you have to have on your offensive line. And then Ioannidis 5, which I'm a huge proponent of Matt Ioannidis, even more so than the Bama wall of Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen, even though I did have Jonathan Allen on my list. He doesn't have either of the Bama boys on his list, as he has Ioannidis over both of those guys. Thank you for your super chat and your list, Jordan Like the Goat. Brian Haynes, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it, Brian Haynes. Thank you so much. Brian writes, are you going to put out a video on your thoughts on who would make the roster and what players are on the outside looking in? Absolutely, I'm going to do that. You know, I usually do that closer to the season. I usually put out my 53-man projection list right before the season starts, after the final preseason game. Directly after that preseason game, I release my 53-man roster. So as we get closer to the regular season, we get closer to the start of the season, and I get to put my eyes on some of these guys because, you know, on paper, it's easy to say this guy should make the football team, this guy should make the team. Obviously, you know, things happen, injuries happen, some guys perform better than others. And remember, this is a very unique season, not just because of the 19 and the Rona. But because of the fact that Ron Rivera has come in and essentially turned over this roster, all of the guys he brought in free agency, all of the draft picks, you're talking about over, and I get it, every year there's a 90-man roster heading into camp. All right. And of those 90 guys, probably 30 just got here and have no shot at making the football team. That's not the case this year. Of the 90 guys that are going to be on the roster heading into training camp, legitimately 75 to 80 of these guys have a chance to end up on the 53-man roster. I think that roster has been extended out to, 58 now, I believe that number is. Whatever the case may be, legitimately, that number is a lot bigger than it ever has been for the Redskins in the last 2 decades. We have absolutely no idea what this roster is going to look like when it's all said and done. I think the linebacker position is a great illustration of that, and we'll talk about that tonight a little bit later on, that the linebacker position is a great illustration of the fact that we just don't know. We have no idea. Just looking at the linebacker position, we don't have a clue. We don't know who they think are starters on this team. We don't know who they are looking at as core special teamers. We don't know what they're thinking at any position, linebacker or moving forward. So I think this is a unique offseason for the Redskins in that it's a lot of change, a lot of turnover. Remember, a lot of these guys that are here, that this organization, Ron Rivera and company did not draft them. Ron Rivera and company did not sign them to their contracts. They inherited some of these guys. Some of these guys will not be on the roster this year. So in saying that, I feel like it's hard to project anything right now. That's why I need to see what they're putting on the field come preseason, come training camp, and then you'll be able to better assess the situation and make an educated guess at that point. But yes, I will be doing a video, as I do every year, on the Redskins' final roster, what I think is going to be the final roster. And I will be doing a video on the players that will miss the cut potentially and be on the outside potentially looking in. Thank you for the super chat, Brian Haynes. JP, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciated, JP. My man John writes, feels like it's been forever since your last show. It does, man. It really does. He says, first off, I enjoyed The Last Dance. And secondly, this linebacker room is so packed, but only 3 can start. I enjoyed The Last Dance thoroughly. Actually was so disappointed when the last 2 episodes aired because I realized for the first time in over a month, I'm not going to have something to watch at 9 and 10 o'clock p.m. on Sunday night. I don't have anything that's going to take up that block of time for me. I enjoyed that series thoroughly, and the linebacker room is as stacked as I can remember it ever being in Washington since the heydays, since the Joe Gibbs 1.0 days. We haven't had a locker room, a linebacker room rather, this loaded. And, I say this loaded, and it's not the most talented group of linebackers in the league. Let's not kid ourselves. But for what we've been dealing with in Washington, this is a ton of talent. This is a lot of guys that are quality football players. There's a ton of depth here, something we haven't had at linebacker in quite some time. Now, again, health is a huge key. Guys are going to have to stay healthy. Mainly Rubin Foster, Shawn, Dion, Hamilton, and those guys are going to have to make themselves available. But at the end of the day, when you start taking a look at that group and you start picking out guys that you think you like and you think the coaching staff likes, it's a lot of guys. And it's really refreshing to see the depth that Rivera and Kyle Smith have built in such a short amount of time. Now, again, some of these guys were here and preceded Ron Rivera's arrival here in Washington. But at the end of the day, they went out, signed a bunch of guys. They went out and drafted some guys to add to the mix. And this is a really solid group of backers. And we'll talk about that tonight. So I really think that this is a group that you can get excited about as a Redskins fan. Got another super chat. This one from my man JP once again. Double up. Thank you for the super chat, JP. Greatly appreciated. My man JP writes, I have Young 1, Haskins 2, Maclaurin 3, Sheriff 4, Collins 5. So that is a quality group there. Haskins, not in my group, neither is Landon Collins, but I can understand why you would do that because if you leave Dwayne Haskins available, if you leave him exposed, you could find yourself without your starting quarterback. Most teams, their list, and that goes to show you just how feeble some of us are on Dwayne Haskins. I believe in him, but I didn't believe in him enough to put him on my list, which is crazy. Think about that. If you don't put him on your list, you're saying to the expansion teams, if you want a starting quarterback, here he is. We don't know how good he is, but here he is. You can have him if you want him. And more likely than not, if you leave Dwayne Haskins exposed, that expansion team is probably going to take him because when you look around the rest of the league, most teams are going to protect their starting quarterback. So, that's pretty damn interesting. It'd be hard to make a list. Like, literally, if I were doing this with that in mind, knowing that truly an expansion team is going to take 2 players from your roster, you have to make sure that you protect 5 guys. It'd be hard to make a list and not put Dwayne Haskins on it because of the fact that if he's poached from your roster, you don't have a starting quarterback. You could theoretically start Kyle Allen. Do you really want to do that, though? So, but he's not on my list. So, I think that's a quality list there. Landon Collins coming in 5th is interesting as well. Thank you for the super chat, John Perez, my man JP. So, all right. I want to talk about the linebacker position while we don't have any super chats right now. So let's go through the list and talk about this position. I want to first start, though, with Ron Rivera and what Ron Rivera has done over the past 5 years in Carolina and what his track record says that he likes to do at the linebacker position. So I went all the way back to 2015. That was a Super Bowl season in Carolina. And from that point forward, 2015 up to 2019, his final year in Carolina, I looked at the amount of linebackers that he carried on his roster. So you look back at 2015, only 6 linebackers on the final roster for Ron Rivera in that season. And so you would think to yourself, okay, that might be a trend. That might be right around the magic number for him, 6 linebackers. But as you continue to progress the years thereafter, 2016, 8 linebackers on the final roster for Ron Rivera. The following year, in 2017, 9 linebackers on the final roster. You go to 2018, 8 linebackers on the final roster. And then you go to 2019, his final season in Carolina, 8 linebackers were kept on the roster. So you're talking about Rivera, who himself was a linebacker in this league. So you've got to know there is a soft spot in Ron Rivera's heart for linebackers. And he probably thinks that they are very important to the construction of a roster. When you're constructing a 53-man roster and you want to load up on a specific position, the linebacker position is probably in his mind one of those positions that you're going to carry a couple extra because of their versatility to play on every single special teams unit. Speaking of special teams, I talked about a guy that Rivera signed very quietly in the offseason. Nobody was paying attention. It was the first guy that Rivera brought from Carolina that was a player, non-staff, but a player. It was the first guy he brought over, and this happened in February when nobody was paying attention, slipped it under the radar. You're not even paying attention to this guy. You don't think he's going to make the roster. Do not sleep on Jared Norris, okay? Here's a guy that the last 4 seasons under Ron Rivera, starting with his rookie year in 2016, he has been on Ron Rivera's roster every single year, all right? 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, Jared Norris has been a mainstay as one of the linebackers on the final roster in Carolina. Why? Because he's a core special teamer. Rivera loves and knows what he's getting out of Jared Norris. So if someone's going to unseat him on this football team, you're going to have to do it through special teams. So do not sleep on Jared Norris as one of the guys that could potentially make this football team, because Ron Rivera brought him here for a reason. All right. Now, he may ultimately not make this football team, but Rivera brought him here for a reason, and that's to compete. And if Rivera feels like there isn't anyone here better on special teams than Jared Norris, guess what? One of those 8, potentially 9 roster spots at the linebacker position, and with the expanded rosters, I'd like to think that Rivera might even think about keeping 9 linebackers this season. We'll see what he decides to do. However, I wouldn't be shocked if one of those guys ended up being Jared Norris, okay? Do not discount him. Don't just look at him and say, who the hell is this guy? He's not making the team. Do not discount Jared Norris. Let me just say that, okay? But let's get to the other guys in the room. I see I got some super chats, so we'll get to those here in a second. But let's get to all the rest of the guys on the list of linebackers. So we start with Thomas Davis Sr., the elder statesman of the group, and he is definitely making this football team. Ron Rivera brought him here for 2 reasons. The chief reason, though, is for him to instill the kind of locker room character, and more importantly, for him to install what Rivera has termed the Ron Rivera culture in the locker room. He wants guys to know how Ron Rivera wants things done. Rivera has said this from his own mouth as to why Thomas Davis is here. So that's the biggest reason Thomas Davis is here. But he's also here because he's still playing at a relatively high level, okay? I've went around and I've listened to people talk about Thomas Davis and his 2019 campaign in Los Angeles with the Chargers, and they said, look, he was damn good for the Chargers. All right, they just decided to part ways with him because they wanted to go in a different direction. But make no mistake about it, he's still playing at a high enough level that he should be on an NFL roster. So I don't feel like this is just a token signing for him to come in here and be a leader and have the leadership qualities and instill the kind of culture that Rivera wants done here in Washington. He's been brought here not only for that, but also because he can still contribute. So he's making this football team as Thomas Davis Sr. All right, I talked about Jared Norris already. All right, do not sleep on Jared Norris. All right, I'm just telling you right now, he's not Chuck Norris, but he will karate chop somebody's ass off this roster if you're not careful. All right, so Jared Norris is not to be ignored on this football team. All right, as we get into camp. Then you have a very interesting guy in Shawn Dion Hamilton. I think we all really like Shawn Dion Hamilton. We all want to see more of Shawn Dion Hamilton. He's a guy that I really think is going to make this football team. I don't see any way, unless he's injured, I don't see any way that Shawn Dion is not on this football team. He's got the pedigree coming from Alabama. I think he's a guy that he's put on some weight. I've heard that he's gained some weight and he looks impressive. We'll see what all of that means. But one thing's for sure, every time he's been on the field, it seems like he's around the football. I think we can all agree about that. When he's on the field, he seems to be around the action. And when you're around the football, good things tend to happen. I like Shawn Dion, and I think he's a guy that is going to continue to be around when it's all said and done. Another guy that is interesting is John Bostick. They brought him back here as a free agent. And I didn't realize this. I heard this about 2 months ago, and I was kind of floored by it because I know John Bostick's gotten around. in his career already. You know, whether you're talking Indianapolis, you're talking about the Steelers, you're talking about the Bears, he's been around the block a few times already in his brief NFL career. I didn't know that he had never been re-signed to a team in his career. He had never played a season and then played again with that same team in his career. So for the first time in his career, he's been re-signed by a team here in Washington. So that speaks volumes as to how they feel about Jon Bostick. I think that they look at him as a quality veteran leader. I thought he showed some really big-time leadership qualities last year. I thought he was huge on and off the field. I thought Jon Bostick was one of the guys that was a glue guy that kept the locker room somewhat together, as it was somewhat, disjointed and fractured at points. And he was a guy that they'd stick a mic in his face and he'd say all the right things. And so I think they see him as a leader on the field and a leader off the field. I think he's another guy that they're going to ultimately keep on this football team. So he's an interesting guy there. Obviously, Rubin Foster is a name that has been polarizing amongst Redskins fans. If he's healthy, he's on this football team. If he stays out of trouble off the field and he's healthy, there's no way you're keeping Ruben Foster off this roster. He may be the most talented guy in the entire room. So when you look at this linebacker group as a whole, and you pick out one guy and say who's the most talented of the group, it's Ruben Foster if he's healthy. So without a doubt, he's a guy that's very intriguing. Got to stay healthy, obviously, but he's a name that I think gets Redskins fans excited about what he could potentially be. And he's on a contract year. Let's face it, the Redskins did not pick up his fifth-year option, nor should they have. And so he's got to stay healthy, one, but two, he's got to ball out this year if he wants to get paid. So a very intriguing situation for Rubin Foster in the upcoming season. Cole Hokum is a guy that I think we all felt like had a strong rookie campaign, really showed well for himself in the snaps that he got last season. I think Ron Rivera took notice. He's one of the guys that Rivera has spoken very glowingly about since taking the job on the defensive side of the football. Hasn't said a lot about many guys, but one of the guys he's talked about with versatility and liking some of the things he was able to do on the field last year was Cole Hokum. So we know Cole Holcomb's not going anywhere. He's going to be on this football team. He's probably, to me, one of the surest locks on the roster at the linebacker position right now is Cole Hokum. I don't see him going anywhere. Then you start talking about some of the other guys that have a shot on this football team. You look at Khaliq Hudson, who the Redskins drafted out of Michigan. Interesting guy. All right, core special teamer. I think he's going to have a shot. And honestly, what it boils down to is Khaliq Hudson versus Jarrett Norris. That's what I'm looking at. I'm looking at those two and I'm saying, you guys are fighting for one spot. All right. We don't need two special teams demons, all right, at the linebacker position. We only need one. So if Khaliq Hudson can separate himself on the field as a defender, show some versatility there, and then say, hey, I'm also just as good, if not better than Jarrett Norris on specials as well. I think he's got an opportunity to potentially keep himself on this roster as a late round draft pick. It'll be interesting to see what happens with him. Ryan Anderson is also a guy that is intriguing. What are we now? Are we going into year 4 of Ryan Anderson or year 3 of Ryan Anderson? I'm trying to think. I want to say he got here with Allen. So if he got here the same year as Allen, that means he's going into the final year of his deal as well, the 4th and final year of his contract. So he's a guy that is playing for a lot this year. And I thought he took a monumental step forward last year in his play. And so I'm excited to see what Ryan Anderson is able to do in his 4-3 defense, where I think he's going to get some really good opportunities to rush the quarterback. He should be a fun guy to watch on the outside. I think he's more suited to be a Sam, and I want to see what he's going to be able to do in this defense. He's an interesting guy to look at as well. Then you get to a guy that I think was the forgotten man last year, and we didn't hear much of anything from JHC, Josh Harvey Clemens, which was really disappointing because I thought 2 years ago in 2017, Josh Harvey Clemens was starting to make an imprint on this roster. He showed some of the versatility to be able to run with some of these tight ends and running backs out of the backfield. He showed a little bit more physicality in the run game, in the box. And I just thought he was starting to take steps forward. And then last year, nothing. Crickets. And now this guy's up. Remember when Josh Harvey Clemens first got here, he was this long, scraggly, rangy, 215-pound, 6'4", safety-looking linebacker. Like, he didn't have a position, really. And now, all of a sudden, this guy's 245 pounds. He's a big dude. So, I want to see what Josh Harvey Clemens has. Does he still have the athleticism? Remember, Josh Harvey Clemens was like a 4'5" guy at 215. If he still has that athleticism at 245, you can do some things with that. He could be like a Shaq Thompson on this defense. You know what I mean? So I don't want to discount Josh Harvey Clemens. He's gotten bigger. He's more physical. And he's an athlete. I want to see if he's still got that athleticism. I'm not going to discount Josh Harvey Clemens, but we did not see a ton of him last season. And so that's the thing that kind of worries me with him. And then the Redskins, remember, also went out and signed Pierre Louie, or Kevin Pierre Lewis, as he's commonly known. I like to call him Kevin Pierre Louie. All right. So KPL is another guy that they signed in the offseason. And when you talk to Bears fans, they swear by him. You talk to Seahawks fans, they'll tell you that this guy has something to him. So Kevin Pierre Lewis is a guy that also cannot be discounted. And they brought him in here to compete. So he's a core special teamer, but also in a pinch, he can hit the field and actually give you quality snaps, which is what he had to do for the Bears last season with all of their injuries. So this linebacker room is chocked full of quality football players, some young, some old, some in between. Nonetheless, it's a great mixture, and it's a great room with a bunch of guys that I am anxious to see play under Jack Del Rio. What says you guys out there? What do you think is going to happen with this group? Remember, on average, if you're taking the last 5 years of Rivera in Carolina, the number is 8, all right? The number comes slightly under 8 when you average it up. It's like 7.9. So you're talking about 8 backers is what he's keeping routinely on his roster year in and year out. So I'd like to think that at least 8 guys are going to be kept on his football team. Well, you're staring at the 10 guys that are currently on the roster. So if you're telling me you're only going to have to cut 2, who are the 2 that you're going to get rid of? That's the $1 million question. I think you can eliminate one of 2 guys. Khaliq Hudson can either be on the practice squad and you keep Jarrett Norris, or you cut ties with Jarrett Norris and you keep Khaliq Hudson. I think one of those 2 guys won't be on the football team. I think they're battling for one spot. Now, where does the other cut come from? Is it Josh Harvey Clemens? Is it Kevin Pierre Lewis? Who is it? That's the $1 million question. If all of those guys stay healthy, who's going to be the other odd man out? Or is it both of those guys? Is it both Khaliq Hudson going to the practice squad and Jarrett Norris getting cut as well? Who's to say? We'll see. I think it's a very interesting position. Let's get to some of your super chats. Got this super chat from Jose Martin. Thank you for the super chat, Jose Martin. Greatly appreciated. Jose writes, what's up, Louie? I've been watching your videos for a year now. Question, do you think Cole Hokum is going to be a top 10 linebacker in the league in the future? Hard to say top 10. I think he has a chance to be a really good linebacker in this league. But do you know how good you have to be a top 10 linebacker in this league? There's so many good backers that have been doing it for a very long time that he'd have to overtake into the future. And some young guys that are going to be coming up in the game that you'd like to think are going to be really good football players. Hell, I can tell you that, the 2 linebackers that were taken in the first round this year that I thought had a first round grade, not Jordan Brooks in Seattle, who might actually turn out to be really good. But I think Patrick Queen's going to be a stud. And I think that Kenneth Murray that was taken by the Chargers in the first round, I think those guys are going to be studs. What about the two Devons that went last year? Devin White and Devin Bush. Those guys look like they're going to be studs. So, that's 4 guys right there that if they are who we think they are, that's 4 guys that are going to potentially be top 10 linebackers. So hard to say top 10. I hate to put guys into boxes. How about just saying, do you think that Cole Hokum could potentially be a Pro Bowl player down the road? I think that's something that's doable. I don't think he ultimately will, but I think he's going to have a chance to be a good football player and one that is a staple for the Redskins moving forward. But I don't necessarily know. Remember, and, I hate to, compare him to a guy that was, so good for so long. But remember how good London Fletcher was for us? London Fletcher didn't make the Pro Bowl until like one of his last seasons of his career. Like, I think he made 2 Pro Bowls and they were the final 2 years of his career. And the last one was like almost like a third alternate. He only got there because like 2 other guys checked out and he ended up getting the call. So, and London Fletcher was so good for us for so long and he hadn't made a Pro Bowl in his entire career. So it's hard to make the Pro Bowl as a linebacker because only usually 3 or 4 of those guys go to the Pro Bowl. And it's tough to really be recognized as a top 10 linebacker unless you're damn near an all-pro. So hard to say top 10, but I think Cole Hokum has the ability to be a really good linebacker. I think what Ron Rivera envisions him potentially being is the Luke Kuechly of this defense. I don't think he's Luke Kuechly, and nor should you. And I'm not saying that's what he is going to be, but I think that's what Ron Rivera envisions him being is that kind of guy for him, the leader of the defense, the guy that calls the plays, gets everyone lined up, has the athleticism to roam from sideline to sideline. Again, he's not Luke Kuechly, but I think he feels like he could potentially do some of the things he asked Luke Kuechly to do for him in Carolina. So we'll see if he can do that or not. Thank you for the super chat, Jose Martin. Got another super chat, this one from Farrah Cody. Farrah Cody writes, first of all, thank you for the super chat, Farrah Cody. Greatly appreciate it. Farrah writes, if Haskins good, we're going to win the East. It's got to be more than just Dwayne Haskins being good. Dwayne Haskins could throw for 5,000 yards, 35 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and have a quarterback rating up over 100, and we could still be 6-10. You know why? Because the defense could be 32nd in the league again. Highly unlikely, but Dwayne Haskins is part of the solution, all right? He's part of the solution. If the Redskins are going to make the postseason or make a push to try to win the division, Dwayne Haskins playing well is part of the equation, a huge part of that equation. But it's not the sole reason the Redskins will be playoff contenders. That it's going to have to be a bunch of things, as I've already outlined for you. The schedule's going to have to fall favorable for the Redskins. They're going to have to take care of the football. They can't turn it over. They're going to have to generate turnovers. The ball's going to have to bounce their way, and they're going to have to take advantage of opportunities. They're going to have to be able to win close games. That means the special teams is going to have to step up. Dustin Hopkins is going to have to bang home field goals, maybe a game winner or 2. You're going to have the defense be top half of the league, or at least close to it. You're going to have the running back position have to be a huge part of this team's success. The offensive line would have to then be intact, and someone would have to step up and take the reins at left tackle. So many things would have to take place for this team to be in the discussion, because I think Dallas is much better than us, and Philadelphia is the only team in the division that did not change their head coach. And oh, by the way, they won the division last year. So Philadelphia, to me, has a leg up on everyone else in the division just off of the fact that they, in a season that is so filled with uncertainty, doesn't have a ton of change like everyone else in the division does. So Philadelphia already came into the division this season as the leaders of the clubhouse, and they're the only team that didn't make wholesale changes. They, to me, are above the rest. Dallas is right there underneath them because their roster, to me, is the best of anybody in the division. And so Dallas is right there with them. And then us and the Giants are bringing up the rear. And that's just the way I see it. Hopefully, I'm wrong. But it's going to take more than Dwayne playing well, to me, for us to close the gap of Dallas and Philadelphia. Dwayne playing well is a part of that solution and a part of that equation, but it's a lot more to that equation than just Dwayne playing well. Thank you for the super chat. James Evans, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate that as well. Rob Yu, thank you for the super chat. Rob Yu, greatly appreciated. My man Rob writes, what up, Lou? It appears Shawn Dion Hamilton makes plays when he is in the game. Thoughts on where and how much he plays, and will Rubin Foster ever suit up? If Shawn Dion Hamilton is on the field, I think it's in a weak side linebacker capacity. I think it's at the will linebacker. I think he will be able to do a really good job as a will, carrying guys up the seam. We saw some of the athleticism starting to come back. Remember, he had a major knee injury at Alabama, a couple of them actually. And so last year he was just kind of coming back into his own and starting to really get reacclimated to, getting his legs under him. And I think now he's ready to take that next step and become a real contributor. So I love Shawn Dion, man. I actually want to see more of Shawn Dion. And if there's any way we can get him on the field more, not less, sign me up. So it'll be interesting to see how the rotation goes because, I love Thomas Davis's presence on the field or in the locker room, but I actually feel like he's taking up space in the lineup. I would prefer to see some of the younger guys get an opportunity at that spot. But if Thomas Davis is able to play at a high level, I honestly, don't care. If he's the best man for the job, put him in there, let him do his thing. But I would love to see Shawn Dion, get some reps. And, because honestly, I don't think they're going to be playing the same position anyway. I think Shawn Dion's more of a will. I think that Thomas Davis is more of a Sam. So we'll see what they, ultimately decide to do. But at the end of the day, we'll see how much he plays in 2020. If I had to guess, I'd say right now, Shawn Dion is in for probably about 35% of the snaps, which isn't a huge amount, but for where he has been, and to where he is now, that's a lot of snaps for him, You're talking about if a game has 60 defensive snaps for the Redskins, 30% is right around, 17, 18 snaps. So that's a decent amount. I mean, I can't think of one game last year that Shawn Dion was in for 18 to 20 snaps. Can you? So, and I might be wrong. And if somebody looks up the snap counts from last year, I'm pretty sure they'd be like, oh, Shawn Dion played in 27 snaps versus the Cowboys in week 17 last year. Go figure, But for me, I think that's how I see him. And, that's why the linebacker position is so intriguing because how are they going to distribute the snap count? How are they going to distribute? Because there's so many talented guys. If the three guys that you have the most confidence in are playing well, you're not taking them off the field if you don't have to. You know what I mean? So how do you get a Shawn Dion on the field if you feel like Cole Hokum, Rubin Foster, and Thomas Davis are your three best linebackers with a splash of Ryan Anderson subbing in for Thomas Davis? If you feel like those four guys are your best four linebackers and they're playing their asses off, how are you going to take them off the field? You're not taking those guys off the field to sub in and get... This isn't basketball. You're not subbing in guys to get them minutes and get them confidence. If your guys are playing good ball, you're going to keep them out there. And if they're getting off the field on third downs, they're not going to be winded. They're not going to be tired. So you're not subbing in guys. It's going to be hard for guys to get reps. You know what I mean? So I don't know what will become of Shawn Dion and his amount of playing time. But it will all depend on how this staff feels about him. And more importantly, how they feel about the guys that are starting. If Shawn Dion himself isn't one of those three guys starting in the lineup. But again, that's why the linebacking position is so intriguing to me because there are some tough decisions to make and there's some guys that I would like to see on the field, but how are you going to get them on the field is the question. This isn't Little League. This isn't Pop Warner. Everyone doesn't have to play, okay? So we'll see how it goes. And in terms of Rubin Foster and will he ever suit up? Yeah, he's going to suit up. I got confidence he'll be ready when the season starts. When and if the season starts, Ruben Foster will be ready to rock and roll. And so I don't have any doubts about that. As long as he's able to stay healthy throughout this process, Ruben Foster will be ready to go. Will he be the Ruben Foster of, say, 2-3 years ago? Probably not, because that first year back from an injury of the magnitude that he just had, you're generally not yourself. You're not back up to 100% in terms of speed right away. But, some guys heal faster than others. We saw that with Adrian Peterson when he tore his ACL in Washington back in 2011 and then came back in 2012 and rushed for 2,000 yards. All right, so we've seen it done, but not everybody has superhuman healing powers like Adrian Peterson. So we'll see. But I expect him to suit up at some point for the Redskins in 2020. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. You got another super chat. This one from Extra Squaw. Thank you for the super chat, Extra Squaw. Greatly appreciated. Extra Squaw writes, "Yo, I'm a believer in Haskins, and I think he's good. But if we go 5-11 and you're still unsure of him going forward, do you draft another QB or keep him?" So here's the thing, all right? And this is a good question, but everything is built around context, okay? So let's say the Redskins go 5-11, but Dwayne Haskins balls out. All right, and I'm gonna just throw out some arbitrary numbers, okay? So let's say the Redskins go 5-11. Dwayne Haskins throws for 3,980 yards. All right, so 3,980 yards, 27 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. All right, that's a hell of a season by Dwayne. And his completion percentage is 67.8%. So he's completing at a high percentage, low touchdown to intercept or high touchdown to interception ratio. All right. A bunch of yards, damn near 4,000 yards passing. Remember, Kirk Cousins was one of the first quarterbacks to eclipse 4,000 yards passing for the Redskins. So that would put him very high on the list of Redskins passers all time for a single season. And you're talking about a guy that really managed the game well because he only threw 7 interceptions. So if you're telling me that we went 5-11, but Dwayne Haskins did that, no, I'm not looking for another quarterback, because what that tells me is other aspects of the team let us down. All right. Dwayne might have played well, but Dustin Hopkins might have missed 2 game-winning field goals or a field goal to tie a game, send it to overtime, and we had all the momentum. All right. We might have been terrible on special teams, giving up a punt return for a touchdown that cost us a game, or had a blocked punt that cost us a game. We might have had the defense struggling in certain instances, maybe against Dallas on Thanksgiving, and maybe in a spot that we thought we could have won against the Giants. They blew a game. All right. The defense, it wasn't up to par, and, certain things didn't happen for us. And for whatever reason, we end up 5-11, but Dwayne plays well. No, I'm not looking for another quarterback. That's the context that I'm talking about. But if we go 5-11, the defense is stellar. They're the number 13th ranked defense in football. We had a great turnover differential and ratio. But Dwayne Haskins was just awful. He was just awful. And the biggest reason why this team was 5-11, then yeah, maybe there's something that you got to consider, as you look at the draft next year, and there are going to be some high-level quarterbacks coming out. And so, yeah, maybe you start looking at some of those guys and thinking to yourself, do we need to do something to move up and potentially get one of these guys? I don't think that's going to be the case, but, that's why context matters, because 5-11 can be achieved in a number of different ways. And Dwayne could be the least of your problems come the end of the season, or Dwayne could be one of your chief concerns at the end of the season of a 5-11 season. So, it's hard to answer that question without actually knowing what took place. But I can tell you this. If Dwayne Haskins doesn't play well, Shawn Springs, his mentor, has already told him this. Dude, you think the criticism has been rough on you in your first season as Redskins quarterback? and somewhat this offseason with everyone talking about Tua and should the Redskins draft him, go have a lackluster year in 2020 and see how the whole chorus and crescendo comes and how loud the noise becomes for Trevor Lawrence, all right? Or for Justin Fields. See how loud it gets for one of those guys to become the new Redskins quarterback. He understands the position he's in. So while I think that you can't take that out of the realm of possibility, you can't take that scenario out that Haskins is the reason the Redskins stink in 2020. I don't see that happening. But if that is the reason the Redskins are 5-11, if he is the biggest reason why they're 5-11, then there will be a decision to make. All right. And I'm one of those guys. I don't like making decisions on the quarterback position in particular. Really, any position with young players, I don't like to jump the gun. Remember, I was one of those guys that we were 3 years in on Josh Doctson, and I was still saying, hey, give him a chance. It wasn't until year 4, going into the fourth season of Josh Doctson, where I was like, hey, man, Josh Doctson stinks. All right. It wasn't until year 4 that I was telling you, hey, Josh Doctson is trash. Okay. Hey, after the first 2 years, everyone was down on Josh Doctson, and I kept saying, hey, man, he's got talent. Let's just give him a chance. And after that 3rd season, I was like, all right, the Doc side of the office, never to return again, okay? So I like to give guys the benefit of the doubt because, as I've always told you this, and I've always said, sports is a microcosm of life, and it's no different with football. Everyone doesn't mature at the same rate, you know? I was a very mature guy at a young age because I have an old soul. So I was mature at like 12, you know, but somebody else might not grow up until they're 32. They might not have the light bulb come on and the light switch go off in their head that says, dude, you can't do that anymore. You got to grow up. That might not happen for someone till they're 37. That might happen for someone because of their life situations and life experiences. That might happen for somebody at the age of 7. They got to grow up and they got to start being an adult a lot sooner than most of us would ever dream. But that's how it is in football too. Some guys hit the ground running as soon as they hit the league. Terry McLaurin came in the door ready to compete and contribute right away. All right? Some guys don't. And you can't kill them for that because maybe in that 2nd or that 3rd year, the light bulb goes off. And all of a sudden now they're a key contributor for you. And that's why you can't give up on guys too early. And I feel like if Dwayne were to struggle a bit next year or this upcoming season, depending on how it looks, I still might be like, hey, man, I still want to see this thing through. But, you know, if it's bad enough and you're in a position, then that's the key. If you're 5-11, you still might not be in a position to get a Trevor Lawrence or a Justin Fields. You're probably going to have to be like the Redskins were this year, a 3-13. And again, with Rivera as our coach, I just can't see the Redskins finishing any worse than 6-10. All right. So, 5-11 may be the floor. But no further than that. I can't see the Redskins finishing any less than that. So at the end of the day, I said all of that to say this. Context is everything in how Dwayne plays. And I think if Dwayne is the sole reason why the Redskins lost games, like he literally threw back-breaking interceptions and he wasn't good throughout games. Like, I'll give you an example. He wasn't good in the Detroit game. Rivera keeps talking about the Detroit game and how Dwayne stepped up at the end of the game. If you all recall, for 3.5 quarters, Dwayne was awful in that game. Awful. He was missing open receivers left and right and left. You know that it's tight. He was missing guys all over the place. So I was pissed off until the final 2 possessions of the game where he redeemed himself. All right. All of the bad was lost because he won us the game at the end. And so Rivera thought that was a turning point of sorts for Dwayne. And I thought it was a confidence builder for Dwayne as well. However, if Dwayne's playing like that the first 3 quarters of that game, and not the guy that drove us down the field the last 2 possessions and put us in a position to win the game, if he's playing like he did the first 3 quarters for the whole season, yeah, I'm going to be a little bit nervous and thinking maybe we need to rethink the quarterback position as a whole. But if you're telling me that there were some struggles, there were some really good games, there were some really bad games, That's the growing pains of a young quarterback. And I'm going to tell you, I want to stick it out, and I want to see what happens in year 3 of Dwayne Haskins. So I know that was a long-winded answer, maybe not what you were looking for, but thank you nonetheless for the super chat. James Evans, thank you once again for the super chat. I greatly appreciate you. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, James Evans. I think you're trying to ask a question, and maybe you don't know how to work the super chat, but whatever the case may be, if you do know and you just want to donate, I appreciate you either way. Thank you for the super chats, James Evans. Got another super chat. This one from Rob U. Thank you for doubling up, Rob U. Double up. Greatly appreciate you, Rob U. My man Rob writes, "What up, Lou? It appears read that one already. All right. So we keep going. Here's the second Rob U. Jay Moreland has talent. Will they play him outside? I think Jimmy Moreland's going to get a chance to play outside this year. Remember, the consensus last year was we got 2 corners, all right, on the outsides already. We don't need another corner on the outside. Excuse me. And so Jimmy's the smaller guy. Let's kick him inside, see what he can bring to the table. And at the time, if you recall, Fab Moreau was still being, experimented with on the inside as well, but it wasn't going the way that the Redskins wanted it to go. But, when we looked at the roster last year, when we looked at all the corners, we felt like we had guys that could play on the outside. So there was no need for Jimmy Moreland to travel out there. But once you got into the season and Jimmy started to play, you started to realize maybe Jimmy's not as comfortable inside. He didn't do it at James Madison. It's not something he's accustomed to doing. And I've already said this, the slot isn't for everyone. Not everybody can just kick inside because he's a smaller guy and, he's quick. He should be able to play inside. No, not everybody's built for the slot, man. It's a different animal in there. All right. There's so many places you can go as a receiver inside. And as a corner, there's a lot of space to cover inside. Deion Sanders once famously said, "Hey, man, I wasn't going in there, man. That's not for me, okay? I wasn't going in there." And this is one of the most decorated corners in NFL history. And he knew it's not for everybody inside. So Jimmy may be one of those dudes that really not comfortable going inside, much better outside. I know Jimmy has talent. I know what I saw on tape. I know what I saw in the preseason from Jimmy. You all remember what Jimmy was doing in the preseason, which is why he got the nickname and why we got excited about him. I think Jimmy deserves a shot outside, and we'll see what happens. And I think that's where he'll be better served. And we'll see if Jimmy gets an opportunity to play outside or not. I think he's going to have a legitimate shot of making his football team. And whether he's inside or outside, I think Jimmy's going to be on this football team, and he's going to get a chance to compete. Thank you for the super chat once again, Rob U. Got another super chat. This one is from Barrett Downing. Thank you for the super chat, BD. Super chatting every single time. I greatly appreciate you, BD. You and everyone else that I can rely on each and every single week to bless the program. Can't thank you enough. There are so many of you guys. Thank you so much. My man BD writes, "Thanks for the show, my brother. I enjoy listening as well as the other fans. Keep it up. I'm definitely not going to stop. I thought I told you that I can't stop. All right. Just like my man, Good Times, James Evans. All right. So, thank you for the super chat, BD. Greatly appreciate you. As we continue on, let's see if we have any more super chats. And we do have another super chat right here from Take That. Take That. All right. This one from Take That. Thank you for the super chat. Take That. Who writes, "Speed. Don't remember having this many guys that can run at linebacker. Maybe we won't get torched by tight ends every week." So true, Take That. So true, my brother. Man, it's been a while since we've had this much speed at linebacker. I can't remember the last time we did. You probably got to go back to the days of LeVar Arrington and Marcus Washington and those guys at linebacker to when we had this much speed on the linebacking core, but really on the defense in general. Because if you remember, back in 2005, that was still LeVar, that was Sean Taylor, that was Marcus Washington, that was Carlos Rogers. There was so much speed on that defense back in 05. That was the last time, right in that early stages of Gibbs 2.0 with Greg Williams from 05 to 07. That was the last time we truly had a difference-making defense. We haven't had one since. All right. We've been really awful on defense, really for the last better part of a decade and a half. Okay. We haven't been good on defense since 05, really. 05, remember the defense carried us that year because Mark Brunell had pinched a nerve in his neck or whatever, could barely throw a slant. Remember, he had the lowest we had the lowest offensive output in NFL history for a winning team in a playoff game against Tampa when we went on the road and beat the Buccaneers in 2005. So the defense carried us, and we had so much speed on defense in those days. I don't know. We might have already drafted LaRon Landry, too. I don't think Landry was on that 05 defense, though. I think that was still Ryan Clark and Sean Taylor at safety. Man, was that a good defense, man. We were so good defensively in those days. I hope we can get back to that. You know, and as Take That said, this is the first time we've had this kind of defense in a very, very long time, or speed at linebacker in particular in a very, very long time. Across the board, I feel like we can go three across the board with guys that can run. I mean, just think about a group with Thomas Davis, Cole Hokum, and Rubin Foster, or Cole Hokum, Rubin Foster, and Shawn Dion. Or you can mix and match. All of these guys can run, you know? None of these guys are slow of foot. None of these guys are liabilities. So you feel really good about speed, something we haven't had at the linebacker position in quite some time. I really appreciate that. Super Chat, Take That. King of the North, tripling up. Appreciate you, King of the North, as always. You King of the Chat tonight as well. My man, King of the North, writes, worst case scenario, DH, Dwayne Haskins, struggles with new O and new offensive coordinator sucks. No left tackle, and Dwayne Haskins takes 60 sacks. Sweat and Young over-rely on talent and underperform. Only DB that performs is Kendall Fuller, and the rest struggle with pressure on the quarterback and injuries. So he said the best case scenario, and he's thinking that he's upped his win total. First of all, if you missed this early in the show, my man King of the North upped his win total from 6 to 7. He said, look, I'm starting to become very unrealistic with my thoughts. I'm starting to come up with ways where we can make the postseason. I'm getting really excited. And he said, look, I'm starting to think of ways that we can turn this thing around and win sooner rather than later. And it got so excited. He's like, my win total's gone up from 6 to 7. I'm hyped. All right. And so he said, you know, best case scenario is, you know, things go well, quarterback plays well, defense plays well, and all of a sudden, you know, that unrealistic scenario starts to become a reality. And now you're looking at 9-7, 10-6, and the Redskins are knocking on the door of the postseason. Now he says you flip that whole scenario on its head and you flip that coin over. And on the other side, the worst case scenario is Dwayne Haskins struggles with a new offense. The offensive coordinator sucks in general, and Scott Turner. No left tackle, which struggles. The offensive line has struggles, which means Dwayne Haskins has pressure on him. He takes 60 sacks. Sweat and Young rely on their talent, and their technique does not shine through, so they struggle and underperform. The only defensive back that we have in the secondary that gives us any kind of production is Kendall Fuller, and the rest struggle without pressure on the quarterback with injuries. And so if that happens, you might be looking at the worst case scenario that I've given you of 5-11. I still think, even with all of those things you just mentioned, with Ron Rivera as our coach, remember just how bad we were last year, and I can't reiterate this enough. Remember how bad we were last year? We were 3-13 and we were awful last season. We, again, almost went a full month without scoring a single touchdown, okay? We were only able to kick field goals for a stretch there. And we still were able to muster 3 wins last year in the left-hand column. I don't care how bad we are this year. It can't be worse than last year with all the turmoil of Jay getting fired and old man Callahan taking over and, you know, not being able to score and a young quarterback and the controversy that was surrounding him and all the injuries that we had and the poor play calling as a defensive coordinator and all of that stuff put into one big pot, and we still won 3 games. And if you're telling me that even if things go to hell in a handbasket this year, you still got Ron Rivera, who's going to keep it together. You still got Jack Del Rio. There's no way that this team, in my estimation, goes anything worse than 5-11. That's why they signed 27 guys in free agency, because if injuries hit us, unlike past years where we didn't have the depth to overcome our frontline starters getting hurt, once those guys went down, it was downhill for our season because our roster wasn't built to withstand injuries. I'm not saying that the guys that they signed are top level backups, but they're better than what we've been putting on the field in past years. And because of that, I feel like if injuries hit us this year, at least credible guys can step in and we won't fall completely off the damn map in terms of play. And so, worst case, even with everything King of the North just said in his comment, I still think 5-11 is the worst you're going to do. Worst you're going to do. So, and I don't think all of those things are going to happen, personally. I don't. But anything's possible. Thank you for the super chat once again, King in the North. All right. Got another super chat. This one from Barry Williams. Thank you for the super chat, Barry Williams. Greatly appreciate it. Barry writes, keep up the good work, Louie T. Definitely my favorite place to go for Redskins talk. Thank you so much, Barry. I greatly appreciate you, and I look forward to chopping it up with you in the near future. Got another super chat. This one is from Farrah Cody. Double up. Farrah Cody, thank you for doubling up. Greatly appreciate you. Farrah Cody writes, this year, Steven Sims is going to compete with Terry on who's the best receiver on this team. I know you're going to clown me for saying this, but watch and see. I'm not going to clown you for saying that. I do think Terry McLaurin is demonstratively better than Steven Sims, but I'm not going to clown you for that because Steven Sims showed me some things last season. He showed me that he can be one of the better slot receivers in the National Football League. And because of that, I think he can put up some big boy numbers. And as Dwayne gets more comfortable with him and he gets comfortable in this offense, I think you could see a huge uptick in Steven Sims Jr.'s production in 2020 and beyond. So I'm not gonna clown you for that. I don't think he's not gonna be better than Terry. I think Terry's got the ability to be a legit number 1 wide receiver in this league. I do not think Steven Sims has that ability. But what Steven Sims can be is the best number 3 he possibly can be. And at number 3, he could be a huge impact player because in this league, to me, honestly, how the pecking order goes is, yeah, you have to have a number 1, a guy that is clearly the go-to guy. But you know what else you got to have? You know, it's cool to have a number 2, but you can actually skip over number 2. On most teams, what you better have is a guy that wins in the slot. Whether that guy's a tight end or a shifty small slot receiver or a bigger slot receiver, as you see some teams going to the big slot receiver, okay? Whatever the case may be, you better have a guy that can win inside in the slot, all right? Those are the guys that are going to convert and move the sticks on third downs. Those are the guys that you expect to win for you on a consistent basis. When you look at the Chiefs, they got Travis Kelce winning in the slot. All right, they got Tyreek Hill winning outside, winning in the slot. All right, when you look at teams that are dynamic and explosive, when the Rams had it going, they had a big slot. All right, they had 2 guys that were running in the slot, and Robert Woods, but more importantly, Cooper Kupp was doing work as a big slot receiver. All right, when you look at the Vikings, when they have it going, they had Stephon Diggs inside. They had Adam Thielen inside. All these guys were putting in work. The Packers take Devontae Adams routinely and stick him inside, and he does a ton of work from the slot. You need your slot receiver to win for you. So I think Steven Sims has a chance to really be an impact player this upcoming season because of the importance of the slot receiver in your offense. Remember, there were years where our best receiver was Jamison Crowder, and Jamison Crowder was nothing more than a slot receiver. So you know the impact that a slot receiver can have if he's a really good one, and I think Steven Sims Jr. is a really good, has a chance to be a really good slot receiver. So I'm not going to clown you for that, Farrah, at all. Greatly appreciate it. The super chat. Tylenol, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Tylenol, my man Tylenol writes, what is Jack Del Rio thinking of this linebacker tryouts? Honestly speaking, I don't know what exactly he's going to do with this group, but I can tell you this much. Jack Del Rio himself, both of our coaches that we think are going to help turn this defense around are ex-linebackers. So if anybody knows what a linebacker at this level is supposed to look like, walk like, talk like, act like, play like, it's Jack Del Rio and it's Ron Rivera. So if you're telling me that we got 10 guys and there's 8 spots for 10 guys, I feel very confident that those two are going to be able to sit down and come up with the 8 best guys that are going to help us win on Sundays at the linebacker position. So I think the real question isn't, who's going to make the roster, but rather how you're going to divvy up the playing time. Who's starting where? What's the best combination? Similar to the offensive line, where a lot of times you want to get your best 5 on the field. You just want to find out, what's my best 5? What's my best combination of 5 offensive linemen? Do I need to shift some of these guys around? How can I get my 5 best guys on the field at once on the offensive line? Same thing at the linebacker position. How can I get my best 3 linebackers on the field? And then when you get into your subsets and your nickel package and your dime, how can I get my best 2 pass down defenders at linebacker on the field? How can I get more guys that can impact the game? Remember, the league is quickly shifting to more of a passing league. You want your linebackers to be able to run. That's why you're seeing so many safeties being taken that teams think can convert into box backers that can run. And that's why you're seeing so many linebackers. The Chargers traded up in the first round to take a linebacker. Why? Because they look at their division with all of this speed and they say, we've got to be able to match the Denver Broncos. You saw what they did in the draft. If you didn't, let me remind you, they already had talented football players in Noah Fant, a 4-4 tight end. They already had a talented pass-catching wide receiver out wide. All right, and I forgot his name, big, tall receiver, but can go get the football. But then they turned around and they added the Alabama wide receiver in the first round. They turned around and added KJ Hamler. They turned around and added another 4-4 tight end and Albert O. And so you look up and Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler and Noah Fant and Albert O and all this speed, this influx of speed. That you look at the Chiefs, we know that's a track team over there in Kansas City. The Raiders added Henry Ruggs, the fastest receiver in the draft. All right, so they look at all this speed that they got to contend against, and they said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to get us a coverage linebacker, a guy that can run at the linebacker position. That's where this league is going. So you've got to be able to have guys that can run everywhere. And I look at this Redskins linebacking unit, and I say, we've got guys that can run everywhere. Kevin Pierre-Louis can run, okay? When he came into this league, and I don't know about the new and improved bigger version of Josh Harvey Clemens, but when he first came in this league, Josh Harvey Clemens could run, okay? And maybe he still can run, even at his newly christened weight, all right? We know Rubin Foster can run. We know Cole Hokum can run, okay? John Bostick isn't a slouch. He's not the greatest athlete in the world, but he's not Mason Foster, okay? All right, so when you look at this defense, Shawn Dion Hamilton can run. We've got guys that can run. So I feel really good. Khaliq Hudson can run, okay? So when you look at this group as a whole, there's a bunch of athletic guys. Now it's about putting these guys into positions to make plays and see what you can do to maximize the skill set and the talents of all of these guys on the football field, and specifically at the linebacker position. And so I think Jack Del Rio is looking at the linebacker position and trying to figure out which guys are going to fit best where. Hard to diagnose the group when you can't get them on the field. You know, it's one thing to meet in these Zoom meetings online. It's another thing to put on the pads or at least get these guys on the field and see what you have. They've been yet to do that, so it's hard to really see what you have until you get these guys on the field. Thank you for the super chat, Tylenol. Santiago Tradell, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it, Santiago. Hope you're taking care of yourself since the last time we spoke. Santiago writes, was hollering at you, Lou. Hope you're staying blessed and safe. Just getting in. Have you heard anything about Cam Sims? I have not heard anything about Cam Sims. And really, at this point, we haven't heard much of anything about anybody. Outside of the veterans on this team and the rookies and the coaching staff, we really haven't heard from anybody because that's the kind of offseason it's been. You're not going to hear a lot from anybody that's not a big name guy or young guy, a rookie on this team. So haven't heard anything about Cam Sims, but as I've mentioned, if you look at the wide receiver position, 4 spots are spoken for already. Barring injury, go ahead and knock on some wood. 4 spots are spoken for already. Terry McLaurin, Steven Sims Jr., Kelvin Harmon, and not Antonio Gibson, and I'm forgetting one, and Antonio Gandy-Golden. All right, the Gandy Man. So that's 4 spots spoken for at the receiver position. The assumption is that they're going to keep 5. So if you're talking about 5 spots, you're probably talking about 5 receivers or 6 receivers jockeying for 1 spot. So Cam Sims is going to be in a fight with the incumbent Trey Quinn, who's been a mainstay the last 2 years, but nothing's going to be guaranteed to him this year. You got Cam Sims, as you mentioned. You got all the guys that have been battling for spots for the last couple of years that have played well in the preseason and just missed out. And then you got a couple of other guys. The kid that they got from Temple is going to come in here and compete. I don't really love him. I don't like him all that much, the undrafted guy. But you're going to have a bunch of guys coming in here competing. Your boy that just got in trouble. I don't know if the Redskins are going to cut him or not. All right. I told you it's a wait and see proposition. Details are slowly coming out about his situation. We'll see what happens. But it's a bunch of guys for 1 spot. All right. So Cam Sims is in a fight for his life, his Redskins life, I should say. He may have a career elsewhere, but he's going to have to tighten up if he wants it to be here in Washington. That is for certain. Thank you for the super chat, Santiago Tradell. Thomas Forsyth, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it, Thomas. Thank you so much for the super chat. Got another super chat. This one from Thomas Forsyth. He says, double up. Let me first thank you for doubling up, Thomas. Greatly appreciate that in itself. Thomas writes, can you do a video on Air Coryell system? If I get some time this summer, I will definitely do that. I would definitely try to put something together to kind of give you guys a sense of what to expect. Now, again, he may have some of those concepts, but, he's going to put his stamp on it, and there will be some variations of it, and that's what you do. You take bits and pieces of what you've been a part of and what you know, and you make it your own. And so I can kind of give you the basis of it, but much like his dad, he's going to want to push the football down the field. All right. That's what the Air Coryell system is all about. It's about stretching the football field vertically and getting chunk plays. So, but definitely, if I get the time, I will put something together to give you guys a snapshot of what to expect for the upcoming season, potentially. Thank you for the super chat, Thomas Forsyth. Got another super chat. This one from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Thank you for the super chat and your gratitude. Greatly appreciate you, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Thank you so much. Mr. Laughing My Head Off writes, who do you see our 4-3 defensive line being? He said, we almost got too much talent with Young and Sweat as your two ends. Who do you see your two tackles being? Payne and Matt Ioannidis. I still got Allen, Kerrigan, Settle. I could see Allen going inside some rotations. Food for thought. So I think what you're going to see is they're going to start the Alabama wall. I don't think Ioannidis is going to start. I think he's going to be, and I've always likened Ioannidis to the sixth man. Like, he's our first guy off the bench. You know, if we had a sixth man of the year award, it'd be given to Matt Ioannidis, because in that rotation, I think, and I told you this, I think Kerrigan's going to start the season off. Now, is he starting for Montez Sweat or Chase Young? That remains to be seen. I think they're going to try to make Chase Young earn it out of the gate. So I wouldn't be shocked if Chase Young doesn't start right out of the gate. But, you know, it wouldn't shock me if they said, all right, Young, you're too good to sit. All right, but we haven't been overly impressed and blown away by Montez Sweat. So, Sweat, you hit the bench. Kerrigan, you're in, but Sweat's going to be getting a bunch of snaps. And eventually, like I said, it doesn't matter who Kerrigan starts for. And this is just my theory. And I could be wrong here. And the starters could be, to start the season off, could be Sweat on one side, Young on the other. But if my theory comes to fruition and Kerrigan is your starter at the beginning of the season, somebody will overtake him by the midpoint of the season. All right, whether it's Young or Sweat or whomever the guy is that's the odd man out, they're going to overtake him by the midpoint of the season and be getting the starters reps and taking the bulk of the snaps. But when you look at the rotation, you can never have enough. I don't ever want you to say that again. All right. A wise man once told me, never too much, never too much, never too much, never too much. You can never have too much on the defensive line. Ever, 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 ever. You can never have too much on the defensive line. If there's one position you can't have too much of, it's the defensive line. All right. So whether we had 6 great defensive ends and 5 great defensive tackles, or you got 2 and 2, you can't have too many. All right. So the Redskins are in a great position. All right. So with that being said, I think the rotation is going to be Young, Sweat, Kerrigan, and one more guy. All right. Who that last guy is, I don't know. All right. We're going to talk about the defensive end position, you know, down the road, like we talked about linebacker tonight, like we talked about tight end last week. We'll get to defensive end at some point and the defensive line as a whole. But I think there's going to be one more guy in that mix. You know, is that guy Nate Orchard? Is that guy, you know, Jordan Brailford? Is that guy James Smith-Williams, who they just drafted in the 7th round out of NC State? I don't know. All right, but it's going to be somebody. It's going to be one of those guys. That's going to be your rotation on the edges. Then you get to the interior, and I think you could see a 5-man rotation. You know, 4 for sure. And the 4 right now is going to be the Alabama wall of Payne and Allen. Then you're going to have Ioannidis, and you're going to have Settle. Now, the 5th guy could be Brantley, okay? Now, if Caleb Brantley can stay healthy and show the flashes that potentially was going to make him a 1st-round pick before he got into trouble off the field before the draft, which ultimately made him a 6th-round pick, then this is a guy that could also be a contributor along the defensive line as well, because this D-line is deep and stacked. However, if you want to trim off some fat and you just want to go with 4 interior linemen, 4 edge rushers, then I think I've just given you how that list is going to look. The wild card is who's the 4th edge rusher, and then you have your 4 defensive interior linemen already, and Allen, Payne, Ioannidis, and Settle. So it'll be interesting to see how they decide to navigate their way through that. I'd like to think that they're going to keep 5 interior defensive linemen. And when we get there, I'll give you Ron Rivera's track record and talk about what his philosophy has been in the past and how that applies to this team potentially moving forward. But I haven't looked at that yet, so I can't tell you. But, you know, the talent is there. And I definitely think what you're going to see to start out the season is Kerrigan and Sweat slash, Young, whichever one is on the opposite side. But I think Kerrigan's going to remain a starter because Ron Rivera, even to a fault at times, is loyal to his veterans, which is why I think Adrian Peterson is going to get some snaps early in the season at the running back position. Either way, as the season progresses, you're going to see one of the youngins take over for Kerrigan and take over the snaps, and then that's going to be the way we're going to roll from that point forward. As far as the interior of the line is concerned, I think you're going to see the Alabama wall be your starters, Payne and Allen. And I don't have a problem with that. Love my Ioannidis off the bench, and I think he's going to come in and just like Crawford, Jamal Crawford off the bench, or like Lou Williams, a professional scorer. He's a professional sack getter. He's going to come in the game and do work. So I think that Ioannidis off the pine is going to be just fine. And I like Tim Settle in the role that I think he's going to be able to carve out for himself in his defense, which is going to be a much better fit for him as an attacking, up the field disruptor. I think you're going to see this defensive line take off this year with the things that they're going to be allowed to do. So that's how I think the defensive line is going to look. Thank you for the super chat, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. See if we got any more super chats. We do have another super chat. This one is from Burgundy Soldier. Thank you for the super chat, Burgundy Soldier. Greatly appreciate it. Love the name, by the way. Burgundy Soldier writes, we should feel really good about the front seven. So much competition. I'm almost not concerned with who makes the roster at those spots. Trust Ron's plan. Ron's plan. I trust it too. And you're right. We're so deep there. I'm not really concerned. And I feel the same way at linebacker. Like I kind of told you guys that so much tonight, that in so many words, that I'm so confident in the amount of depth that they've been able to put together. And it didn't just happen this year. You got to give Kyle Smith some credit for going back a couple of years with the Shawn Dion Hamiltons and the Josh Harvey Clemens and, those guys, the Cole Hokums last year of the world that they've put together. And then, they added to it this year, with Khaliq Hudson and adding a Kevin Pierre Lewis to the roster and John Bostick last year and, Rubin Foster and all of those things that they've done to put us in a position now where we've got an abundance of wealth at the linebacker position. I feel kind of the same way about linebacker and the defensive line, as you mentioned, the front seven, that I feel really good, and I don't really think you can lose in the front seven. The real question comes at the back end. What are we doing at corner? What are we doing at safety? That's where the real questions come in. I think we know who the starters are going to be in the secondary. The real question is just how are they going to perform, all right? And how much depth do you really have? I talked about all the depth at linebacker. We don't have a ton of depth at safety. All right, that's one of those positions you look at and you say, man, 1 or 2 injuries and we're in some trouble, But we'll take a hard, long look at every position, safety included. So we'll get to that eventually. But thank you for the super chat, Burgundy Soldier. I agree with you. I'm not really concerned about the front seven. I think those guys, I feel good about the guys that we have collectively as a group at both of those positions. And as a whole, collectively in the front seven. Rob U, thank you for the super chat, tripling up. Greatly appreciate you, Rob U. Thank you for the super chat. Rob U writes, not sold on Fab Moreau. Thoughts on him? So let's talk about Fab Moreau. And Fab Moreau is an intriguing guy. We felt like we got a steal when we got him. This was a guy with first-round talent, but ended up hurting himself at the combine, lifting weights and on the bench, and had a pec injury, and so he fell down draft boards, and the Redskins scooped him up in the 3rd round. We felt like we got ourselves a steal. First-round value in the 3rd round. We thought, okay, got ourselves a starting corner for years to come. Redskins at the time had Bashaud Breeland and Josh Norman, so there was nowhere for him to get on the field. So the Redskins had the bright idea, well, let's kick him inside and see what he can do in the nickel after they traded away Kendall Fuller. And I thought it stunted his growth. You know, early on in his career, he was dealing with injuries. He was never healthy. And so that stunted his growth a bit. Then they tried to kick him inside to the nickel, and that didn't work because he's not a nickel. He's a boundary corner, and that stunted his growth. And so we haven't seen the best of Fabian Moreau, but we started to see the flashes of the guy that had first-round potential at the end of 2019. You remember some of the games he turned in and some of the performances he had. The one that sticks out like a sore thumb, obviously, is the Detroit game. He had, if I'm not mistaken, he had 2 picks in that game. If not 2, he definitely had 1. And there was a stretch there where he had some interceptions, like 3 in 4 games or something like that. He started to play with confidence, and he finally got his opportunity out wide, and he was making the best of it. And so I understand you not being sold on Fab Moreau. You have every right to still feel like the jury's out on him. But he's trending in the right direction right now. And I think this is the first offseason he's been fully healthy and confident, knowing that he's the guy out there. And so now all he's got to do is focus in on his craft, getting better, and figuring out how to solidify himself as a starting caliber corner in this league. And guess what? This is the best time for him to do it because it's a contract season for Fab Moreau. If I'm not mistaken, this is year 4 for him. He was a 3rd-round pick, so there is no 5th-round option. So don't quote me on that. I'm not sure if he was our 3rd-round selection, but I'm thinking he was a part of the draft class with Jonathan Allen as your 1st-round pick, Ryan Anderson as your 2nd-round pick, Fab Moreau in the 3rd round as your 3rd-round pick. I could be wrong, and this could only be year 3 of Fab Moreau, but I think this is year 4 of Fab Moreau. And if it is, in fact, year 4, he's on a contract year, so he's got to go out and ball so that he can get paid in the upcoming offseason. So I'm looking forward to seeing Fab Moreau. I understand those of you out there that aren't sold on him. Totally get that. You're not wrong. You're very justified in feeling that way. I, however, as I told you just not even 10 minutes ago, 10, 15, 20 minutes ago, max, I'm more patient with young guys because everyone doesn't mature at the same rate. And I'll make excuses for Fab Moreau because I do believe his growth was stunted by some of the things that we did as an organization, putting him inside and some of the injuries he dealt with early in his career that were nagging. All of these things contributed to him not growing into the player that ultimately he was supposed to become outside as a boundary corner. Now he's getting an opportunity, and I think he's going to make the most of it. All the talent is there. He's got size, he's got length, he's got speed. I'm anxious to see Fab Moreau as a starting corner outside, not looking over his shoulder. And we don't have a ton of depth at corner, so the job is all his. And I think he's going to make the most of it this year. So we'll see what happens with that. But thank you for the super chat, Rob U. Got another super chat. This one from Jordan Like the Goat. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Jordan Like the Goat. Greatly appreciate you. Jordan Like the Goat writes, I rewatched a lot of games from last season. I think Jon Bostick played really well for us. I see why we re-signed him. And I told you guys as much. During the course of the season, I said, you know who's quietly having a very solid season? Jon Bostick. He kind of got lost in the sauce. He kind of got caught up in the wash of what was a really bad season. He actually played well last year. And remember, I told you, I said, look, I don't want Jon Bostick starting for me, but if you told me Jon Bostick was one of my primary backups at the linebacker position, I'd tell you, I like that. I don't have a problem with that because Jon Bostick was really solid for us last year. But remember, on good football teams, Jon Bostick doesn't start for you. All right? Jon Bostick starts for bad teams, not good ones. Jon Bostick is a quality backup on a good team. And that's where I think we're heading. And that's why I don't have a problem with a guy like Jon Bostick being on this roster because Jon Bostick, I think, is a quality defender. He's smart. He knows what he's supposed to do. He's a quality, high-character guy in the locker room. And he's a guy that can wear the green dot, that can communicate, that can get everybody lined up. I like Jon Bostick. I like him a lot. And I thought that him being re-signed in the offseason was a really solid move by the organization. Thank you for the super chat, Jordan, like the GOAT. Got another super chat, this one from Leo Suarez. Thank you for the super chat, Leo Suarez. Greatly appreciate it. Leo writes, Shawn Dion Hamilton is destined for greatness. I hope you're right. I really do because, I like him a lot. And I think he has tremendous talent. But the key is him getting on the field to be able to showcase his talents. And one of his biggest bugaboos in college was his health, staying healthy. He gets to the NFL, and now he's got to prove himself all over again. New coaching staff, so the slate is wiped clean. Nobody cares about the Shawn Dion that we got compromised coming out of college in 2018. Nobody cares about the Shawn Dion that barely played in 2019. What we want to see now with a clean slate and a brand new coaching staff, a brand new set of eyes at the linebacker position, and with a new linebackers coach, what I want to see is, can he take advantage of this opportunity and force them to make tough decisions and force them to put him on the field? If Shawn Dion is destined for greatness, then it is his job to force the coaching staff to say, man, we got to find somewhere for Shawn Dion to go. 51 keeps flashing. We got to find a way to put him on the field. That's what Shawn Dion has to do this offseason. And it's going to be tough because it's not a lot of offseason. You know, he should already be in that process of proving to the coaching staff that he is one of the starters on this football team. Well, because of this 19, he hasn't been able to show anything yet. He's not alone in that, and no one has been able to show anything. However, when that opportunity does come, he needs to be ready to take full advantage. Thank you for the super chat, Leo Suarez. Jose Martin, double up, Thank you for doubling up, Jose Martin. Greatly appreciate it. My man, Jose, writes, Terry is facing one of the best corners this year. Do you think he can reach 1,000 yards? Well, Terry, the division is solid at cornerback. It's gotten better at corner. When you look at the Giants, they were awful at cornerback last year. They went out and signed James Bradbury to be their number one. So by virtue of that, they've gotten better at the cornerback position. Obviously, the Eagles traded for Darius Slay. He's a stud, one of the better corners in our game. So by virtue of that, they've gotten better at the cornerback position. The Cowboys lost their number one corner in Byron Jones, but they went out and they drafted Trayvon Diggs. We'll see if he's able to come in and man up the number one spot. So you'd like to think that they got a little bit worse at the cornerback position, but overall the division has gotten better. With the Giants getting better and the Eagles getting demonstratively better at cornerback. So by virtue of that, Terry's going to see stiffer competition. But remember, Terry almost went over a G last year with all of the nonsense, with three different quarterbacks in there, Case and Colt and Dwayne finally getting in there. He almost went over a G last year. So if Terry almost went over a G with all of the nonsense that went on last season, I'd like to think that Terry, with more help around him, mind you. Remember, Terry was a lone soldier last year. There was no help around Terry McLaurin. We had no tight ends. There were no other receivers except for Steven Sims. And Steven Sims didn't step up, and Kelvin Harmon didn't step up until later on in the season. Terry was carrying us by himself as a pass catcher for the first 7-8 weeks of the season. So to say that Terry can go for a G, I feel really confident in saying that Terry should be able to hit a G this year. Got to stay healthy. That's number one. And obviously the consistency of the offense will tell the story. How does Dwayne play? How is he protected? Does he have time to scan the field, find the open guy? Is he accurate with the football, giving guys a chance to run after the catch? Are guys, because Terry has 1,000 yards last year if Case Keenum can hit the damn deep ball. Case Keenum missed him in Philadelphia on the second deep ball. Case Keenum missed him in the Giants game early. So again, if the deep ball was hit, Terry's over a G last year. So if we hit the deep ball this year, Terry's going to have a legitimate shot at going over a G. I firmly believe that. So thank you for the super chat, Jose Martin. See if we got any more super chats. We do have another super chat. This one here is from Brian Haynes. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Brian Haynes. Greatly appreciate you. My man Brian writes, just curious, Louie, are we just doing the basic 4-3, or are we going to incorporate other styles of the 4-3 in this defense? You're going to see multiple variations of the 4-3. You're going to see an underlook. You're going to see an overlook. You're going to see a bunch of different looks with the 4-3. And that's the beauty of a 4-3, is that it can morph into whatever you want it to, depending on how you play it. So you're going to see variations of the 4-3. You're not just going to see your customary standard 4 defensive linemen and 3 linebackers right behind them. No, you're going to see that strong side backer walked up to the line of scrimmage, and that's your over front. You're going to see the weak side backer walked up, and that's your under front. And so you're going to see different variations of the 4-3 where guys are blitzing off the line, and you're going to see different looks. And it's going to look like, different formations at times, but it's still a 4-3 defense. So you're going to see different things. They're going to play around with the alignments and things of that nature. But at the end of the day, they don't want to blitz a ton. Let me reiterate this. Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera aren't really looking to blitz. If they can get pressure with 4, that's what they would prefer to do. So I'm not looking for a ton of blitzes right off the bat. I think they're going to want to see what they have up front. Can Montez Sweat win one-on-one matchups? Can Chase Young win one-on-one matchups? Can the guys on the interior collapse the pocket and win one-on-one matchups? That will be the story early on. And if they find that they have guys that can win and they don't need to blitz, that's better. Because now you got 7 guys back in coverage. The more in coverage, the merrier. All right? The more guys you have to devote to getting after the quarterback, the less you have back in coverage. The more vulnerable you are on the back end, the more big plays you give up. Jack Del Rio and Ron Rivera have, throughout their careers, have been huge on making offenses earn it. Do not give up big plays. Keep everything in front of you. Nothing cheap, nothing deep. You know the mantra, you know the moniker. All right, keep everything in front of you. And so the thought process there is, at some point, you're going to have a hiccup on your drive. If I make you go 13 plays, at some point, you're going to have a holding penalty, or you're going to have a pass that gets batted down. On 1st and 10, you're going to get stopped for no gain. And on 2nd and 10, when you try to throw it, it's going to be batted down, and now it's 3rd and 10. Now we got you right where we want you. Or on 2nd and 7, now you got a holding penalty. Now it's 2nd and 17. We got you. We should be able to get off the field. 2 downs to pick up 17 yards. We should be able to get off the field now. So that's their thought process. Bend but don't break. Don't give up the big plays. And that's why you're not going to see a lot of blitzes. They want to hit home with 4. Most defensive coordinators do. But if you can't, that's when you've got to get creative and start creating ways for guys to get home, whether it's twists and stunts, running games, blitzing backers or safeties or corners or things of that nature. So I think, to answer your question, because I kind of went off topic there, you're going to see different variations of the 4-3. Yes, you're not going to just see a basic 4-3, 4 down linemen, 3 linebackers behind them. You're going to see guys on the line of scrimmage, over, under fronts, different things that they're going to do off of that. So, yes, you're going to see different 4-3 formations. Thank you for the super chat once again, Brian Haynes. King of the North. 4th time tonight. Like I said, you're killing it. You're killing it tonight. King of the North, greatly appreciate you, man. Really, really do. Thank you once again for the super chat. King of the North writes, I read coronavirus may end up lowering the cap next year. Good players may be cut by capped, strapped teams. Redskins sitting pretty in the scenario. It works both ways. If the cap's lowered, we may have some players that we want to keep, but, because you got tough decisions coming up. Remember, Jonathan Allen, you're going to have to pay him. Brandon Sheriff, you're going to have to pay him. Some other guys are going to be up there. You're going to have to make a decision on the 5th-year option for Daron Payne here shortly. You're going to have to pay him in a bit. And before you know it, Terry McLaurin's going to be up for a new deal. And so you got to also look at how it could affect the Redskins. They're going to have guys that eventually are going to need to be paid as well. So, and in all of these short-term deals that we signed guys to, what if they work out? What if the safety we signed from Pittsburgh works out and you want to keep him here long-term? And you figure that that's the guy that you want paired up next to Landon Collins. And so you need to re-sign him. What if one of these other guys that you went out and signed to a 1-year deal comes in and lights it up and you're like, we got to have this guy back next year. So there could be a couple of those. What if Darby comes in here and plays really well and you're like, hey, man, really need Darby back. All right. So it could work both ways. We're sitting in a really advantageous position right now with the cap situation that the Redskins have. But again, you never know. You'll see what happens. But you could be right. Some teams may have to make some tough decisions. And, the Redskins could be one of those teams that benefit from it. We'll see. But the NBA has already said they're going to have to lower their cap situation because of the corona. And I wouldn't be shocked if the other sports have to follow suit, So we'll see. But the NFL is a different animal. It's a different beast. So, while the NBA had to do it and Major League Baseball may have to do it, that may not pertain to the NFL. We'll see. But if you're playing games without fans in the stands, that's going to have an impact revenue-wise. Okay, so I'd like to think that something's going to be done, but we'll see. Got another super chat. This one from HTTR Lot. Thank you for the super chat, HTTR Lot. Greatly appreciate it. HTTR Lot writes, 757 all day. VA, 2 up, 2 down, stand up. Says, 2012 was the best season for me as a fan. I was born in 89. I never witnessed greatness. When are we going to make a change, Pistol City? We've been waiting for a long time for change to come, man. I remember in 2012 singing, it's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it is. I remember singing that song and thinking to myself, it's about to happen. It's really about to happen. We're about to embark upon a franchise-altering run that changes the narrative on the Redskins organization, and we're going to have a chance to compete for something meaningful for the next 5 to 7 years when Robert Griffin III first got here and 2012 happened. And man, was I wrong. But that was a fun ride, man. 2012, and sometimes I go back and watch those videos. That was the first year I started doing videos on YouTube. I was a rookie in 2012. And it was fun following the team. It was fun following the rookies that year. I did a series called The Starting Five because in that year's draft class, 5 quarterbacks were taken, 4 in the first round, but 5 overall that were just lighting it up. And I thought that they were going to be really special. You had Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson was a 3rd round pick, by the way, but he was lighting it up in that rookie season. You had Robert Griffin III, Andrew Luck. Obviously, those were the top 2 picks. Then you had Ryan Tannehill, Russell Wilson, and the one guy that turned out to really stink in that group was Brandon Weeden. But he was also a 1st round pick, if you remember, that year. So I was following those 5 guys. And I remember that 2012 season like it was yesterday. The shock and awe game of week 1 versus New Orleans. Us putting up 40 in the Superdome and the Griffining pose with Pierre on the 89-yard touchdown strike on what we would later come to know as the drift route that Pierre ran a million times in 2012 and nobody could stop it. And, even in the losses, it was fun. But we started out the season 3-6 and it looked like we weren't going to amount to much. But again, even in the losses, it was a ton of fun. I remember losing a game to Atlanta. Griffin gets a concussion on the sidelines, gets hit by Weatherspoon, the linebacker, because he doesn't know how to slide, takes a shot right by the sidelines. Kirk comes in, tries to save the day, but ends up throwing a late pick in that game. We lose to the Falcons, but that was a fun game. Obviously, we had the Baltimore Raven game when we had the winning streak, but there was another loss early in the season that was a fun game. But, we just didn't have enough firepower. But there were a bunch of games like that early in that season that you could tell, man, we got something here. And then, you get the Minnesota Vikings game. First of all, you get the loss. The Panthers were horrible that year. They were 1-7, I believe, going into the bye week. And we had our homecoming game. And I remember D'Angelo Williams talking about the pamphlet, seeing the homecoming game books that they give out. I forgot what they're called. Programs. The program they gave out. And it was the homecoming game. It was the first time the Redskins had done that. And he was appalled at the fact that the Redskins had the Panthers as their homecoming game. You know, because in high school, when you have a homecoming game, you usually schedule your homecoming against the worst team because you want to win your homecoming game. So, nonetheless, he was pissed off. The Panthers were garbage. Cam Newton was a young quarterback. He came to Washington, and they tore our ass to shreds in that game. And it was embarrassing because the Panthers were horrible. But as it turned out, at that point, we were horrible. We weren't a good team. And so that dropped us to 3-6. We went into our bye week, and Mike Shanahan makes the famous speech about assessing for next year, you know, wanting to see what he has for next year. And then that prompted Robert Griffin III to then come out and say, next year, I'm still trying to win this year. Matter of fact, we're going to run the table. You know, I'm trying to win every game. And that just started off this chain of events. Then you get the Minnesota game and, you know, he's electrifying run down the sidelines and he jumps into the stands and, you know, and then that just kept building and building. And next thing you know, you're beating Dallas on Thanksgiving. That's one of the most memorable games from that season is that Thanksgiving win in Dallas 38-31. Or was it 38-30? Whatever it was. You get that. I think it was 38-31. Then you get that one. Then you get the win against the Eagles. First of all, you get the win versus the Ravens. He gets hurt. Kirk has to come in. We get the big punt return from Richard Crawford in overtime that helps us win that game. But Kirk, remember, comes in, has a big third down conversion and a 2-point conversion on a quarterback draw. Gets us to overtime. We get the punt return. We end up beating the Ravens. Keeps the winning streak alive. We then go on the road the next week versus Cleveland. Robert isn't able to play. Kirk goes out, has a masterful game. I remember Leonard Hankerson went off in that game when I still was on the Leonard Hankerson fan club, and I was the leader of that. Like, yo, Hank is going to be a beast. We all know how that turned out. But Hank had a big game, a big catch down the field on a diving grab. He didn't get tagged, got up, ended up scoring a touchdown. Kirk was masterful in that game. We all know what ended up happening after that game. Griffin getting mad because of the offense looking so much different with Kirk running the show. But he comes back the following week for Philadelphia, does Robert. He's compromised, but he does enough to help us beat the Nick Foles-led Eagles as we went on the road there. Then you get the big Monday night game against the Giants. I'll never forget that one. That was a big one on Monday night. I was so nervous, and we found a way to scratch that one out like 17-16. Man, that was a fun game. And that was when we were winning primetime games too. Like, we weren't shying away from the moment in 2012. That was the last year that we didn't bitch up on the big stage. All right, we went on Thanksgiving and beat the Cowboys. We beat the Giants on a Monday night. We beat the Cowboys in a winner-takes-all Week 17 matchup at the crib on a Sunday night. We were outstanding on primetime television in 2012. You've taken me down memory lane, down a rabbit hole that I didn't need to go. I don't know when greatness is coming. I don't know when we're going to turn it around, but I can tell you this much. Ron Rivera's the man for the job. Hopefully, this is the beginning of something special and beautiful here in the nation's capital. Thank you for the super chat, HTTR, a lot. Let's see. I got another super chat here. This one is from Barry Williams. Thank you for the super chat, Barry Williams. Double up. Thank you for doubling up, Barry Williams. Greatly appreciate you. Barry writes, there's been some commentators trashing AGG's route running. What do you think about that? And do you think he can get it cleaned up before the season begins? So, here's the thing on AGG, all right? And I think I've told you guys this, and I told you this in our breakdown, in my breakdown of AGG, that he's not a great route runner. So if you're hearing people trash his route running, some of that is justified. I wouldn't I wouldn't say that it's garbage. I wouldn't trash it. I just say he didn't have an extensive route tree at Liberty. Liberty, 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 Liberty. He didn't have an extensive route tree at Liberty. All right, they weren't asking him to run a post corner or a post corner post or a 12 back, a 10 back to a 12 back to 10 or a 14-yard dig route. Like, they weren't asking him to run a 16-yard bench route. They weren't asking him to do that at Liberty. He was bigger, he was more physical, he was stronger, and in most cases faster than the guys he was playing against. And so they just said, hey, big boy, post these dudes up and we're going to get it to you. Run 8 yards and stop, and we're going to throw it to you. All right? Run fast in a straight line, we're going to throw it up, you go get it. It wasn't a lot. He wasn't asked to do a ton. Run a slant. Use your body to box out the defender and do the rest. And he did. So his route running isn't with his physical gifts. It hasn't caught up yet. And he can get better at that. And he will get better at that. But let's say he doesn't. Let's just go with the notion that he doesn't get any better as a route runner. Guess what he still has? Size, strong hands, and the ability to put his nutsack on somebody's helmet. And again, that's what he's coming into the league with. That's what we're looking for him to do. All right? Out-muscle guys for the football. Be bigger, stronger, faster than some of the guys he's going up against. And he's going to be able to do that. So, yeah, he's not a great route runner right now. No, he's not going to be polished by the time the season starts. But as time progresses, he's going to get better as a route runner. It takes time when you haven't been asked to do something to get better at it. He's going to get better at running routes. And eventually, that's going to be something that he's going to excel at. But right now, that's not what we're going to ask him to do. We're just going to ask him to be a physical presence. All right? In the run game, 50-50 balls, back shoulder fades, all of those things he's going to excel at. So right now, I just want him to focus on being the best version of Antonio Gandy-Golden, the Gandy man that he can be. And that may not factor into him running better routes right away, but eventually he's going to get better at running routes, and he is going to be a difference maker as a receiver, whether he is a better route runner or not. So he'll be fine. Don't worry about any of that, Barry. Trust me. We know what we were getting ourselves into when we drafted him. We didn't draft him because he was a extravagant route runner. We drafted him because he's a height, weight, speed specimen. He's a physical guy that can go up and get the football. He's a guy with strong hands that can catch it in traffic and drag guys along for the ride. So that's why you go out and you get an Antonio Gandy-Golden. The Gandy man. If anybody can, the Gandy man can. All right? Thank you for doubling up, Barry Williams. Greatly appreciate you. See if we got any more super chats. And we do. Got another one here from Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Double up. Thank you for doubling up in very great order. Mr. Laughing My Head Off, thank you for super chatting for the second time tonight and being generous in doing so. Greatly appreciate you and all the super chats that I've received tonight. Thank you guys so much. Mr. Laughing My Head Off with his second super chat writes, little history. Joe Gibbs was Don Coryell's offensive coordinator in 78 and 1980. San Diego helped design Air Coryell. Yep, I remember that very vividly. He came over from the Chargers in 81, I believe it was his first year, and the Redskins started 0-5, if I'm not mistaken. And a lot of people were questioning whether he should be the head coach, but he did come from San Diego. He says, Gibbs is Air Coryell. We ran it with Doug Williams, Mark Rippon, even scored even his second stint with Brunel Portis Santana, the glory days. So just to piggyback off of Mr. Laughing My Head Off, and thank you for that super chat, because you just brought something to my attention that I hadn't brought up. That remember how everyone remembers the Redskins and Gibbs 1.0 for the Hogs in the run game, and the Redskins running the rock with anybody back there, whether it was, Timmy Smith or Joe Washington or Ernest Givens or Ernest Bonner, excuse me, or Givens, or it didn't matter. Some Ricky Irvins, excuse me. We had so many different running backs. Riggo, obviously, I don't want to leave him out because he was the best of them all. It didn't matter who was back there. The offensive line was so dominant that we would run the football on anybody. But what people fail to realize is that Joe Gibbs, number one, won a Super Bowl with 3 different quarterbacks. Nobody else in the Hall of Fame can lay claim to that. But more importantly, Joe was pushing the ball down the field off of the run. That play action fake was he wasn't looking to get little dinky dunks. Joe was looking to chuck it down the field. All right. Joe wanted a guy that was going to throw it 40, 50 yards down the field. You remember what Rueben was doing in 91? Rueben was throwing it down the field. You know what Doug Williams did in the Super Bowl in '87 versus the Denver Broncos? He was throwing it down the field. We all know about the 35 points in 18 plays. Doug was chucking it down the field. Joe Theismann won an NFL MVP throwing the football down the field. So, again, when you hear Air Coryell, and it's a reason why it's Air Coryell, is because you're airing the football out. You're throwing the football down the field. So when I think about Joe Gibbs 2.0, he tried to run some of those same concepts, but the league had passed him by. He was still trying to run counter trays, and remember, Joe wasn't a fan of the shotgun the first time around. Remember, that wasn't his thing. So when he came back the second time around, he still wasn't a huge fan of the shotgun. And so he had to figure out how to use the shotgun. And remember, that's why he ended up bringing in an offensive coordinator. I believe it was after his second season here. After 2005, when they made the playoffs, he brought in my man from the St. Louis Rams with the big playbook. I vividly remember Gibbs coming over from San Diego with the Chargers. I do remember that. Thank you for bringing that up, though, Mr. Laughing My Head Off, giving everybody the history lesson. And if I'm not mistaken, George Allen came from the Chargers as well as the special teams coordinator, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been the Rams he came from. I think he actually came from the Rams, not the Chargers. Joe came from the Chargers. I think George Allen came from the Rams. Either way, anyhow, thank you for that super chat and that history lesson, Mr. Laughing My Head Off. Martin Matthews, thank you for the super chat. Greatly appreciate it. Martin Matthews, my man, Double M. Thank you. Double M writes, "Hey, Louie, read today that the Skins wide receiver core is ranked last in the league. Being a Skins fan, I say that's crazy. Being a practical beat-up Redskins fan, damn, I kind of see that ranking. What's your opinion of that?" Yeah, I mean, look, here's the thing about the Redskins wide receiver core. If you're looking for production, we don't have it, okay? It's a young group. And really, you could say that across the board, outside of the running back position with Adrian Peterson, who has production throughout his career, but even at the running back position, we don't have guys that have done it in this league at a high level other than AD. So when you look at the wide receiver position specifically, I talked about 4 guys having locked positions that have a position, barring injury. Go ahead and knock on a little bit of wood. 4 guys have a spot locked up. Terry McLaurin, Kelvin Harmon, Steven Sims Jr., and Antonio Gandy-Golden, the Gandy Man. That's 4 spots. I just named 4 guys, either a rookie or in their second year. All right. And of the second year receivers, only one had what you would perceive to be a big time season. And he didn't eclipse 1,000 yards, came dangerously close, but he didn't eclipse 1,000 yards. So what I'm telling you is that you've got a receiving core of unproven guys. Because even in Terry McLaurin's case, everyone's saying, hey, that was cute what you did. 900 and some odd yards receiving. That was really cute, but can you do that again? All right? We've seen one-hit wonders in this league, man. All right? We've seen guys come in this league and look like Skee-Lo. I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a baller. We've seen dudes come in here and bust off a 1,200-yard receiving year only to never be heard from again. All right? We've seen those guys. So everybody's looking around and saying, can you do it again? And those other dudes behind you, they're bums. We don't believe in them. And oh, by the way, you got a quarterback we don't believe in too. So not only do we not believe in the receiving core, we don't believe in the guy that's getting them the ball. Hell, we don't even believe in your offensive line, man. They looking at us up and down like, who are you? So, no, I don't blame them for that. But you know what I'm saying? While you see a green, wet behind the ears, breath smelling like Similac wide receiver core, I see a group of young, hungry studs ready to break out. So you can look at it glass half full or glass half empty. I'm a glass half full guy. Most Redskins fans are going to be glass half full because they believe in the talent at the wide receiver position. The outside media doesn't, and they have no reason to believe that the Redskins have talent. So they're looking at it glass half empty because we stink. We were 3-13 last year. We haven't been good in the last 3 seasons. And what makes you think anything's going to be different outside of Ron Rivera being your head coach? So I get it. I understand it. I'm not mad about it. But what I'm telling you is I watched Terry McLaurin for 15 games last year. All right. I know what he's capable of. All right. I watched Steven Sims for 16 games last year. I know what he's capable of. I watched Kelvin Harmon for 16 games last year. I know what he's capable of. And I watched Antonio Gandy-Golden, the Gandhi man, at Liberty. Liberty. I watched him. I feel confident about him. And I actually like the man pulling the strings under center in Dwayne Haskins, getting him the football. So I feel good. I can't speak for anybody else out there. I feel good. And they can say what they want to say. All right? They're entitled to their opinion because it's the easy narrative. It's low-hanging fruit that the Redskins are going to stink. And they should be saying that. Again, we got to go out and prove it. They should say that the Redskins wide receiver core stinks. They should say we got a bottom 5 quarterback in the league as a starter. They should say that the Redskins are going to finish in the bottom 5 or 10 picks in the league. They should be saying those things. Why shouldn't they be? What have we done to prove the contrary? Nothing. And until we do, those things are going to be said about us. But you know what? I like it like that. 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 Because we seem to respond when nobody believes in our capabilities. We seem to play better when the expectations are low. I'll tell you when I feel like the Redskins have arrived. Not when we have a good season. It's when we follow up a good season with another good season. Because I've watched this Redskins team over the last 20 years have one good season and then fall the hell apart the following year when expectations have risen. All right? We've never dealt with the expectations of being good and you're supposed to win a game. We never have dealt with that well. All right? Never. Not since Daniel Snyder has taken over this team. That's the thing that we used to do with Joe Gibbs and Joe Gibbs 1.0, is that we would find a way to be just as good, if not better, the next year. We haven't been able to do that since Daniel Snyder has taken over. We had 2005 with Joe Gibbs 2.0. What did we do in 2006? Nothing. We had Joe Gibbs in 2007. What did we do in 2008? He left. We got Jim Zorn. We started 6-2. We finished 8-8. All right. We had the 2012 season. What did we do in 2013? Wet the goddamn bed. Okay. A bunch of off-season controversy that led to a miserable 2013. We thought we had arrived in 2015 with Kirk Cousins. You like that? You damn right I like that. Give me more. What did we do? First game of the season, the Pittsburgh Steelers came in our house and pulled our pants down and beat us with a leather belt in our crib. Left us with all kinds of webs and marks on our damn legs and on our ass. That was A sign of things to come for 2016, and we should have made the playoffs in 2016, but we didn't. Why? Because we weren't good enough. We didn't handle the expectations of being a winner well enough. And we haven't been good since 2016, or 2015, excuse me. Really, 2016 was the last year we were capable of doing anything. We should have made the playoffs in 2016. But I digress. All right. The bottom line is, and I went off on a tangent, and I can do that from time to time. And I apologize, okay? Gotta bear with me. But I do that. I get passionate sometimes about my skins. But bottom line is, I'll bring it back full circle. They should be saying that about us. They should be saying that we're the worst at this, we're the worst at that, we're going to be a bottom of the league in this, we're going to be bottom of the league, because we were that way last year, and there is no reason for them to think otherwise. Because we've been a dysfunctional organization, because we've been the laughingstock of the league, because we can't get right, because we can't fill up our stadium without filling it up with half of the other team's fans. So, yes, our wide receiving core is being looked at as bottom of the barrel. While they see young and inexperienced and unproven, I see young, hungry, and talented. They see it their way, I see it my way. That's how I feel. Thank you for the super chat, though, Martin Matthews. Jose Martin, tripling up. Appreciate you, Jose. Thank you so much for the super chat. My man, Jose Martin, writes, I'm from Miami, and the only trash talk that I have with Dolphins fans is who is worse. And my only comeback is we got more rings. Or you can say, hey, we beat y'all last year, you know. Last time we played y'all, who won? That's the famous line you give somebody that you know you're not going to see for another 4 years. Last time we played y'all, who won? And then you just leave. You drop the mic on that one right there, man. You don't even got to go to the rings discussion, because they can pull out, last time we played in the Super Bowl, who won? And, of course, they beat us in 1972 in the perfect season. I would just go to, hey, the last time we played y'all, who won? Drop the mic, walk away. I ain't got nothing else to say. All right. Thank you for the super chat. Jose Martin. Let's see if we got any more super chats. And we do. Got one here from Santiago Tradell. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Santiago Tradell, greatly appreciated. Santiago Tradell writes, thanks for your shout out about my health. I'm better and blessed. What do you think about our chances of getting Jay Peters? Thank you for the update, first and foremost, man. I'm glad that you are doing well, and I hope that you continue to stay healthy and blessed. That being said, what are our chances of getting Jason Peters? As long as he's still a free agent, and this is the way I view this situation. The longer he's available, the higher our chances of getting him become. And you know, that kind of goes without saying, and I'm kind of talking in a circle there. The longer he's a free agent, the higher probability that he has a chance to sign with us. If he's not a free agent, guess what? He can't sign here. But what I'm also saying in that same vein is that, look, he wants to go back to Philadelphia, and the Eagles have expressed interest in bringing him back. But the longer that doesn't happen, the more likelihood he's going to have to sign somewhere else if he wants to play. And so I feel like, you know, if the Redskins are interested, they want to find out what they have first. I don't think the Redskins, and I've seen people, Redskins fans, asking about Larry Warford, who was released by the Saints because they went out and drafted Cesar Ruiz, and now they have another interior offensive lineman. And so a guy like Larry Warford became expendable. So they cut him. And a lot of Redskins fans asked him, what about Larry Warford? What about Larry Warford? What about Larry Warford? All right. The Redskins like their interior offensive line. They like their guards. They got a bunch of them. They like their center. They just drafted Kamel Ishmael. They just drafted Keith Ishmael. So they got a bunch of guys on the interior. Just drafted a couple of interior offensive linemen last year. Drafted another one this year. You still got Chase Rouillet. All right, you still got Brandon Sheriff. They got a bunch of guys. They brought in some guys in free agency. They just brought in Wes Schweitzer. They're not signing Larry Warford for what? You know, he's going to command some good money. I'm not saying it's going to be top dollar, but it's going to be good money. The Redskins don't feel like they need to spend on the guard position when they already got to pay Brandon Sheriff a bunch of money. So Larry Warford is out of the conversation. And I think Jason Peters is potentially out of the conversation if they feel confident in what they have in Charles. If they feel like Sadiq Charles can start for them, they're not going to go out and spend money on a guy that's going to cost them $8, $9, $10, potentially $1 million for 1 year. They're not. They want to get their young guy on the field as soon as possible, get his feet wet, get him battle tested so that when they're ready to win, potentially as early as next year in 2021, this guy has played in, 16 or 12 or 10 games and he's got that many starts under his belt. And now he knows the speed of the game. He knows what it takes to be able to compete at a high level, and he's ready to help you win when you're ready to win. So I don't think they're looking for Jason Peters necessarily. Now, again, if they get to training camp and Sadiq Charles just simply isn't ready for the NFL game yet, then a guy like Jason Peters becomes a reality. A guy like Donald Penn becomes a potential reality. But right now, I think it's a wait and see approach. I don't think they're going to be hasty in trying to move on a guy when they feel like they got their starting left tackle in Sadiq Charles. So Jason Peters, the longer he stays available, the better the chances are he gets signed by somebody not named Philadelphia, which means the Redskins could be in the runnings. But I'd like to think that they are going to just move forward with Sadiq Charles, personally. Thank you once again for the super chat, Santiago Trudell. Got another super chat, King of the North. Can't see you at this point, bruh. You're killing it, man. You really are. Can't see you, man. We John Cena in it now. Can't see you. All right. King of the North says, don't know why, but that early loss to the Giants in 2012 still infuriates me. Don't get beat. Damn. That was one of those fun games, though. You got to admit. The fourth down Robert Griffin scramble, elude a guy, throws it as he's dropping down to his knees to convert on fourth down. Come on, man. That was a fun one. I told you there were some fun games early in that season, but you're right. Josh Wilson, you cannot get beat deep by Victor Cruz. Victor Cruz can't get beat by Victor Cruz. Can't get beat by Victor Cruz and let him salsa in the end zone when you goddamn got the game right there for you. I mean, those are the kinds of heartbreaking defeats we've suffered in New York versus the Giants. But anyway, I remember the year the Giants won the Super Bowl. And I promise I'm not going down a rabbit hole. This is not going to be a 20-minute off-tangent, non-sequitur. But I remember another painful loss against the Giants. I don't know if you guys remember this one. But it's the last time I remember the Redskins wearing those crispy 1970 throwbacks with the yellow helmets with the R on it. I got the hat that you've seen me wear with the crispy helmets with the yellow bottoms, white tops with the striped white and burgundy socks. Oh my God, they're so crispy, man. They need to bring those back. But anyway, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was week number 3, the Giants were on their deathbed. They had given up 80 points the first 2 weeks of the season. They gave up 45 to the Packers in week 1 and like 35 the week after that. And they were 0-2 and they were on their deathbed. I mean, literally, they had the IV hooked up to them. They had all kinds of tubes running to their mouth and nose, and the machine was helping them breathe, and they were barely alive. Beep, beep. And they weren't moving, and they were in a vegetable state. We had them. They were dead. This was 2007. Dead, I tell you. We were up 13-0 at halftime. We should have been up 27-0 at halftime. We had so many opportunities in that damn game. And I'll never forget. We let those bastards come back, take the lead. I think they ended up taking the lead 17-13. And we got all the way down to the 1-yard line, and it was like 2nd and goal, and we couldn't get in. And we had a 3rd and goal. We couldn't get in. And so Joe Gibbs calls his final timeout. Clinton Portis is not on the damn field for whatever reason. Lydell Betts' ass is in the game. And Joe decides to go for it on 4th down with a run play. And the Giants stop us at the goal line. They win the game. They turn their season around. They end up winning the damn Super Bowl in 2007. Now, I'm glad they did because they probably were the only team that could beat the damn Patriots in 2007 and stop that undefeated season. But we had their ass, man. That was a pain. That shit hurt. It hurts now thinking about it. We should have won that game. Anyway, yes, that 2012 loss against the Giants in the Meadowlands early in that season. Can't give it up. But I remember that game was so legendary for Robert because that fourth down conversion to Logan Paulson. Are you kidding me? Avoids a guy, makes a miss, and as he's falling down on his knees, throws a dart to Logan Paulson to convert on like 4th and 8, like a 12-yard gain. Stop, man. Robert was nasty, man. Early in that season, Robert was nasty, man. Anyhow, I digress. Thank you for the super chat, King of the North. Joe Rockhead J. Thank you for the super chat. Joe Rockhead J. Greatly appreciated. Joe Rockhead J writes, coaching and the new defense, not what we saw last with these guys, will determine the success or at least the identity of this team, offense and defense. You're correct. You can't go off of what we've seen from these guys in the past. The only thing that will carry over is their talents, okay? All right? So if a guy can run, whether he's playing under Greg Minuski or he's playing under Jack Del Rio, he can run, all right? If a guy can cover in space, whether he's doing it under Greg Minuski or he's doing it under Jack Del Rio, he's going to be able to cover, all right? If a guy can't cover or he can't run, it doesn't change, you know? Now, what guys are asked to do and what their responsibilities were and how they're asked to do certain things, that might change and that might change the outcome. But, you know, the actual talent and the skill set that you have, that doesn't change no matter who's calling the plays. So you're absolutely right, though. On offense, on defense, you got to kind of wipe what you saw from some of these guys out of your memory bank and wipe the slate clean and say it's brand spanking new. All right, what can you do with these new coaches and what they're asking you to do? So you're 100% spot on. And that's why, you know, a guy like Shawn Dion has a legitimate shot because it's a new staff. Everyone's going to get a shot. And you want to see what these guys can do. You know, and that's why I'm so excited about the defensive line because these guys were asked to do things that they shouldn't have been asked to do up front, you know. There was a lot of two-gapping and a lot of eating up space for guys to roam free. We didn't have the linebackers to have them roaming free to make plays. We didn't have backers that made plays. So, you know, asking these guys to two-gap and asking them to occupy blockers instead of penetrating and getting up the field wasn't what was in the best interest of those guys as players, but they did what they were asked to do. Now you're going to see guys attack instead of being passive and instead of absorbing blows, they're going to be the ones giving them out. So I look forward to seeing what this team looks like on offense and defense with different guys calling the plays and the shots and how some of these players respond to being put in better situations than they were with the last regime. So I agree with you wholeheartedly, Joe Rockhead J. Thank you for the super chat. Joe Rockhead J. Double up. Thank you for doubling up. Joe Rockhead J. Greatly appreciate you. Joe Rockhead writes, how do you judge our wide receivers with what this team was? I mean, you really can't. We had 3 different quarterbacks. We had 2 different offenses. 3 if you count the fact that old man Callahan wanted to run the ball and score 9 points a game and just not turn it over. And then you got a different offense at the end of the year when you had my man that we wanted to be the offensive coordinator at one point calling the plays. Jesus, why can't I remember his name? Kevin O'Connell calling the plays. So you really had 3 different play callers last year because once Jay got fired, Bill Callahan took over initially, and then he finally let Kevin O'Connell call the plays without him breathing down his neck. So you had 3 different quarterbacks, 3 different play callers essentially, and just a bunch of nonsense going on, You had revolving doors at different positions along the offensive line. It was a mess last year. It's hard to evaluate the receivers. But, one thing's for sure. You can tell when a guy has talent. And you know what a guy is capable of doing and what he's not capable of doing. Kelvin Harmon isn't a speed demon. He's not going to be getting behind a bunch of NFL defenses. But what he can do is he can run the short and intermediate routes, and he can make plays there. We saw that last year. Steven Sims can get open anywhere. He can get open deep. He can get open underneath. We saw him win in just about every situation, so we know he's capable of doing it. And so, and Terry McLaurin, same thing. He can win on all three levels, short, intermediate, deep. So we saw that from these receivers, even though it's hard to evaluate what these guys could potentially be if they're in a functional offense for 16 games, which we were not. But you can see the talent, and that's what I'm saying is you can identify talent and say, okay, if this guy is put in a situation to succeed with all of the gifts and traits that he has, he should be able to be successful. And that's what you were able to glean from last year with these receivers, is that these guys have talent. So that translates. Again, talent translates. Now, how do you fit in a person's scheme? Yeah, that depends on how they're utilizing you. If you're a straight line speed guy and I'm asking you to run routes and be a technician and that's not who you are, you're not going to excel because that's not what you do. But if I know that you're a guy that can run fast in a straight line, I'm going to put you in positions to get vertical. That's what Ted Ginn Jr. has been all about his career. Is that, he wasn't the best route runner. He's gotten better over the years, but everybody knows Ted Ginn can run fast in a straight line. So let's get Ted Ginn vertical. All right, let's not try to reinvent the wheel here. We know what Ted Ginn is capable of. Let's do that. And that's all I'm saying with these receivers. Hard to evaluate them. I get that because of the mess that went on last year. But at the same time, you can identify talent when you see it. And we have talent at the receiver position. So, let's see. Do I have any more super chats? I got another one here from Dirk Diggler. Thank you for the super chat, Dirk Diggler. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much for the super chat. Let's see. I think I got another one down here. I do. Santiago Trudell tripling up. Thank you for the super chat, Santiago Trudell. Greatly appreciate you. Thank you for tripling up, my man. Santiago writes, has Bryce Love's rehab been still progressing? From the last I heard of it, he's still rehabbing. Sounds like he's getting to a spot in a place where they feel confident about him being able to contribute relatively early next season. But as of right now, the last time Ron Rivera spoke and someone asked him about Bryce Love, he said he's still rehabbing. That's all he said. So I'll take it at face value. He's still rehabbing. And remember, he had a follow-up surgery to clean up some things in his knee. So, like I said, even when Bryce Love comes back, don't expect the Bryce Love that we saw back in 2018 prior to the injury, or even the 2017 Bryce Love that was throwing his name in the hat for Heisman Trophy consideration. You're not going to see that guy until 2021 at the earliest. I just want to see him get back to running around, getting confidence in the knee, allowing himself to be hit and knowing that he's going to be fine. And once all of those things start to sink in and he starts to gain the confidence in cutting and doing all the things that he was once comfortable doing without even thinking, then you can start to see him opening up and running and being the dynamic playmaker he was at Stanford. I think that we'll see that guy potentially next season, not this upcoming season. But I want to see him nonetheless. Thank you for the super chat once again. Got another super chat. This one from my man JP. Thank you for the super chat. Thank you for, I think you tripling up. I'm going to just double up, and double up. I think you've already doubled up. I'm going to say this is a triple for you, but we're going to do both just because I can't remember. But I appreciate you either way, JP. John Perez writes, the one team I badly want to beat this year is the Steelers. That week 1 loss to them in 2016 at home on Monday night still pisses me off to this day. Yes. I totally get that. That was an ass thrashing of epic proportions. And the reason that one stung so much is because I want to say that 2016 was the last season of real legitimate hype surrounding this team heading into the season that we've had as Redskins fans. We won the division in 2015. We had a home playoff game that we should have won against the Packers, but we blew it. But Kirk was coming back, and we had Shawn and Pierre coming back, and Alfred, not Alfred Morris. Who was our running back that year? I don't think AM was still in the mix. He might have been in the mix still. I think we might have moved on by then at the running back position. Whatever the case may be, Chris Thompson was doing his thing out of the backfield, and I think Matt Jones might have been Matt Jones might have been the running back at that point. Whatever the case may be, we had so much talent on that team. Jordan Reed, was still playing at a high level. Remember, he was coming off of setting a Redskins single season record for the most receptions in a single season by a Redskins tight end. So he was coming off a massive year. Kirk was coming off of a big year, throwing for over 4,000 yards, breaking all kinds of records. This team was as stacked and as confident as one could be considering the circumstances surrounding this team over the last decade and plus over the Snyder regime. And so as a fan, I can tell you firsthand, I can't speak for you guys out there. Going into that game, I was on cloud nine. You couldn't tell me nothing. I thought we were going to be so good. And then the Steelers came to town, and that balloon had gotten so big. And, you know, I was one of the guys blowing that thing up. I mean, and it had gotten to epic proportions. And the Steelers came in with the sharpest pen I had ever seen. And they walked up to us, and they smiled right before they looked at us and smiled with a devilish grin before they took that sharp pen and they popped our damn balloon. And we watched that thing fall to the ground, and all the air came out of our cells. And I remember doing the Monday night overtime after that game and how, not devastated or distraught, but just how dejected I was. I wasn't distraught because it was the first game of the season, but how dejected I was and somewhat in disbelief and shock because I didn't think we were capable of getting our ass whooped like that at home. And I didn't think the Steelers were that much better of a team than us. But they came in and they took it to us. I remember Bashad Breeland struggling that night. Remember the whole, conversation. We had just gotten Josh Norman. And the whole conversation was, should Josh Norman travel? And we thought, remember, Bashad was coming off a strong 15. And we felt like he was ready to blow. And so we thought we had 2 number ones. And it turned out we had no number ones. And, man, yeah, that Steelers game was rough, man. It was rough. You're right. If I had a hit list, Steelers would be on it. And like I said, we've struggled with the Steelers, man. I remember rookie season, Robert Griffin III, 2012, we went to Pittsburgh, and we tried a double pass with Robert Griffin III, and they lit his ass up down the field. We've struggled with the Steelers. I told you, I chronicled the last 3 times we played them. 16 is the twerk game, as I like to call it. 12 was the, I call it the Robert Griffin III double pass smash game. And then 08 was the Terrible Towels debacle, where they came to FedEx. We were 6-2. They came to FedEx, took over our stadium. We might have been 6-1 at that point, maybe 6-2, whatever the case may be. It was Jim Zorn's first season. J.C. Campbell was playing good football. We started out the season like gangbusters. And we were riding high. They came to FedEx on a Monday night, and they took over the stadium, waving the Terrible Towels, and they whooped our ass. And our season pretty much went downhill from there. We lost that game, and then we lost the game to the Rams that we shouldn't have. I remember it like it was yesterday. O.J. Otagaway, or whatever the hell you say his name, had a pick six right before half in 08. We lose to the lowly Rams. Like 10-6 or something garbage like that. 7-6. It was horrible. Man, that season went to hell in a handbasket quickly. So we haven't beaten the Steelers in quite some time. I'd like to beat them. I'm with you, JP. I'd like to get that one. Pretty damn bad. Anyway, got another super chat from Dirk Diggler. Double up, for Dirk Diggler. Appreciate you, Dirk Diggler, man. Thank you so much for the super chat. All right, so we are approaching the 3-hour mark. I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. This was a fun show, man. Some reminiscing. We talked about the linebackers. We talked about the top 5. And if you didn't get a chance to leave your top 5 in the comment section live, do it after the video goes live on YouTube, and leave it in the comment section so I can read it. Your top 5 Redskins on the roster right now. If you had to pick 5 guys that an expansion team couldn't get their hands on, who would those guys be? So, with that being said, I am a Redskins fan etched in burgundy and gold. My Redskins spirit will never die. Redskins spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, hail to our beloved Washington Redskins. I thank you guys so much for the support tonight. This was a really fun show. My God, this show was so much fun. I enjoyed this one thoroughly. All right. Look forward to doing it again with you guys next week. Hopefully, we have nothing to meet about in between time, unless it's something good. But hopefully no negative nonsense. And we'll reconvene next Thursday. Man, it felt like a long time between last time we spoke, because we had a stretch there where we were talking 2-3 times a week. But in any event, thank you guys for joining me. Thank you for all of you who joined us in the chat tonight. Thank you. A special thanks to all of you who super chatted tonight. You guys were wonderful. You guys stay safe, stay blessed. Take care. We will reconvene here shortly. But in the meantime, enjoy your time. But more importantly, stay safe. And you guys have a good one. Take care.
Louie T Network.